Hello and welcome to another episode of Atheism, Agnosticism Under Scrutiny. And my name is Ray, and I welcome my friends with me tonight on the panel. We have a lovely guy and friend. Welcome, Greg.
God bless. Welcome. Thank you.
We will welcome a few others. They may join later. So in the meantime, welcome everyone that either joins the stream or I see we got somebody already in the comments. Donkey Kong, welcome. Anyone else that joins, welcome to another episode. So we are going to change things up a little bit. We just have a quick recap first. The recap being on that we try to get answers to the three main objectives of first of all the universe and the source of where the universe comes from, a sort of epistemological point of view, trying to, in other words, reason to why the universe came about and how it came about. We then looked at the moral dilemma and understand whether there's objective morality or the source of morality. And then lastly was also just looking at the death and burial of Jesus Christ as evidence of the supernatural, and then therefore does that provide evidence against the atheist position. But what we're going to do tonight is maybe make it a little bit easier for those that want to make those challenges, come on board and join to make a challenge, is simply to say, let's look at what an atheist or agnostic can put to the table to explain the origin of life. Now, recall that we're putting out as a challenge on the simple basis that atheism now and agnostics, using various methods in terms of science, philosophy, research, whatever it may be, is clearly producing a whole wad of explanations to try and explain the origin of life. So it's not that an atheist can simply, we just don't believe in God, and that's one aspect, but that of course cannot be an acceptable position, because we can always just say, well, I just don't believe X, I don't believe in Y. We need to know why. And for that purpose, we're going to look at the origin of life and understanding from atheist or agnostic position, your worldview to why you believe, what is your understanding of the origin of life. And yeah, it may be one or two guys have different views. I do understand there's a lot of different views out there. Not every atheist or agnostic is agreeing with each other. So we're definitely looking forward to those different views, whatever that view is that you have. You're welcome to join the stream, and we can go through that and discuss your viewpoint. We're really intrigued, if you like, to understand why you believe what you believe. There is the biological aspect, cosmological aspect, maybe purely from a philosophical perspective. Whatever it may be, we would just like to understand why you believe it, because one of the things we've noticed is when we look at schools, when we look at media, there is a lot of emphasis placed on all sorts of theories, which people take on board and then run with. But we really want to challenge this, because if that theory or that understanding isn't as strong or as well explained or even provable or evidential, then I really would encourage you to look at this and say, wait a minute, rather than just running with the status quo, running with whatever the media is saying, whatever the latest thoughts are coming out through scientists or schools or whatever platform, that you don't just accept it and run with it, but you challenge it and you understand why it is something that you can potentially accept and believe in. And what we mean by that is we really do encourage you to challenge and test those hypotheses and not just accept them on sort of surface level, if you like, because this whole aspect of understanding the origin of life has been something that's been going on for thousands of years, and it has evolved over that time in terms of the different views that exist out there, and then from that perspective, it is definitely interesting to understand why and where those views are going. What's the what is behind those views? What you can substantiate? Because I myself is struggling a lot with some of these views, because I just cannot see any strong evidence. But of course, it is also down to what you've been taught. If you, for example, just believe that the Earth is billions of years old, and you've never really checked it out, you just run with that belief, then you've got to ask yourself, what is the evidence behind that, and how can you substantiate those things? So that's really what we're trying to do, what we're trying to challenge everybody on the stream, and that's really what we want to do tonight. So it's not really going to be covering all the different aspects so much. We really just want to challenge your understanding and belief of your version, if you like, of what you believe is the origin of life. Now, you can do that in two ways. You can do it from the aspect of the origin of the universe, or you could do it at a micro level, if you like, at just understanding how an individual molecule, one, where's the origin of that molecule and how that forms life, the origin of that process, if you like, at that micro level. So either of those is fine, but that's really what we're going to cover tonight. And I do see we have somebody in the panel, on the stage, I should say. So welcome, Mita. And the fact you joined the stage confirms to me that you're interested in joining and have a discussion. So welcome, Mita. Welcome to the stage.
Hey, hi Ray, and hi Greg.
Hi.
You can hear me just fine, can you?
Yeah. It was very clear.
Yeah, good. So I know we discussed last week, you, myself, and Arul, and I know we discussed like the origin of the universe and the morality bit, and you had the third point last time about Jesus' resurrection, but I just wanted to check: is the topic pretty much on origin of life?
Yeah, it is for tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just made a bit of a change in format, only because we just really wanted to home in on this origin of life topic for now. But we will cover all topics, and certainly the issue around Jesus is something we will cover. If it's something that you want to cover a little sooner than later, that rather than waiting for us to bring that up as part of this stream, just to let you know, on Fridays now we do have Christianity under scrutiny. So on Fridays, if you wanted to bring up that, because that is more of a Christian position argument, then
sorry, Ray, just sorry to interrupt. Is that different from the Monday one? I've seen like there's some
so Monday is, yes, it is. So Monday is Roman Catholicism and
ecumenical kind of.
Yeah, so it's part of what we call other denominations within the Christian church that we are putting under scrutiny because we don't believe it's the true church. So that includes the Roman Catholic, a number of different Orthodox churches, etc., come under that. So it's not what we see as our pure Christian position. That is a stream that is separate, and that's now on Friday. So if you want to bring up a topic specifically on the Christian position to challenge that, then I welcome to do that tomorrow on the Friday stream.
Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I'll obviously respect the platform in that sense. So I'll leave the resurrection probably to tomorrow then. I know we discussed the origin of life, I think last week. So you gave me some of the with James Tour, some of those links.
Yes. Oh yes, that's
right. Yeah, so I read those, but I also watched because I've discovered while I was looking up, because James Tour was a new person to me. So I discovered he'd had a debate like a year ago with there's this guy called Professor Dave on YouTube. I don't know. I think he's kind of a science educator. So they had a debate about
Okay.
the origin of life kind of research, and just to like, I mean, there was a lot of heavy chemistry there, obviously, so it's beyond my
Indeed.
field of knowledge. But I do have to
For
say,
most of us.
this goes for both sides. They didn't really conduct themselves very well. For someone who's like James Tour, being a professor at a prestigious at a university, he was. I mean, I know someone's personality shouldn't necessarily. That doesn't mean the evidence is necessarily wrong, but both sides were a bit unimpressive in that regard. So it was hard to know whether they were just taking a bit too personally in that, and whether they were just trying to hammer in their own points. But I did also go and watch, because James too, I think some months after that debate, he had a round table with at Harvard with some other Harvard or Cambridge with some other, like, because one of the professors he sat with is Lee Cronin. So I think he's leading
Amazing.
in the origin of life research. And there were some other, like, physicists, a philosopher, things like that. And I think they gave quite good pushback on a lot of the things that James Tour was trying to like assert regarding that. And so in that sense, and also what I also learned regarding specifically about Lee Cronin, which came across during the roundtable, is because in the debate with that Dave Farina, he'd actually said that Lee Cronin had said that the origin of life research is a scam. That's what, if you go watch the debate, James Tour, you pretty much quotes him. But if you follow it up, Lee Cronin had actually been a bit sarcastic about that, because he'd said it on Lex Friedman podcast, and he'd been sarcastic about that. Same, he posted on Twitter again. So I found it a bit disingenuous to just use that as a quotation to then say, oh, it's all a scam, so you should stop all the research altogether, because the leading researcher, Lee Cronin, was in a bit of tongue-in-cheek said that, oh, it's all a scam. Because if that was the case, like, for instance, if yourself, Ray, if you just said, if you posted something on Twitter and said, oh, Christianity is a fraud, my first thing would be to message you directly and say, are you being serious about this? Because that's quite a claim thing for you to say, considering your background. So the fact that he didn't do that due diligence is has made me a bit suspect of his character in that sense. Like, is he being a genuine person? And the fact I also learned that James Tour hasn't actually published any primary research in the origin of life field. So he's only produced blog posts, so they're not peer reviewed. And he's a professor in nanomolecules or nanotechnology. So chemistry, yes, but not specifically the area of origin of life research. So that also, I'd like to see him engage in the primary research by publishing his own. I guess before I take him a bit more seriously on that. So I mean, that's just my lowdown from following on that.
That's fine. So just to quickly speak a little bit about James, is he's done a number of different things. And obviously, if you're looking at some things that may not have been so impressive to watch or whatever, you know, everyone's human. Not everyone's always going to conduct themselves in a way that will necessarily impress us at all times. James may have his moments, but I think with James is really that one of the biggest things that really stands out for me is this whole challenge about life forms. You know, one, creating life from nothing, and of course significantly demonstrating you can create life from a single cell molecule. So that was the biggest challenge he put out there, and he did that either by evidence through a lab or through scientific sort of chemical equations, if you like. So they could even sort of theorize a way that moving molecules a certain way, adding certain I don't know what you would call them, like an agitator, something that can impact the cell structures to form in a certain way or whatever, and all that process was challenged, and to date we don't have anyone coming forward. So if you want to put in your private chat an email address, then what we could do is we could send you the really the most effective and most impressive particular either debates or whatever it may be, or papers from James and maybe some others as well that I think could be very useful. And if you want, we can send that to you to provide you some really key information around James.
Yeah, it's just when I was watching the debate with that Dave Farina guy, I mean, Dave Farina didn't conduct himself quite well either. If you watch the debate, he's so he was, I guess, the atheist on the side of evolution, but he was insulting the audience as well at points. So both sides did bad. So it's not, I'm trying to single out James too in that regard, but I did see that there was. In that debate, he did engage in the shifting of the goalpost, because he pretty much put up a chemical equation, I think, or a molecule structure on the board, and said you need to solve that. And regarding side chains and other things, and Dave Farina was able to produce primary research, peer-reviewed primary research, where they had addressed this or produced results regarding that, and he just constantly seemed to shift the goalpost to the next bit and rejected the evidence, while he's not produced any primary research, peer-reviewed primary research himself. So I think, I mean, just from when I was in uni, like if you when I was doing my own dissertation, I had to cite primary research just even back up what I was trying to claim. The fact that he's not even engaged in that beyond blog posts, I can't really take that. I mean, just from my scientific background, I can't take that more seriously than he produces that.
Yeah, I think you haven't got James probably fully understand. So he's not just about doing blog posts. So he's been at universities. He's written many papers.
But not in origin of life research. That's my point. He's a distinguished professor in nanotechnology.
Right. Yeah, let me explain myself. So what I'm trying to say to you is this. We're not looking for... so this is a little bit like reverse sort of theory, but if there isn't a way to prove something, it is not like there's an onus to say, if there is basically the basis that the origin of life has to start from a single cell molecule, and then through that there needs to be evidence of how that can form into a multi-molecular structure that forms life, then if that is the position of the atheist, if you like, or scientists from that position, then it's really the burden of proof is on the atheist to then say, here's the evidence. Because if that's the theory they believe in, they have to provide. So James doesn't have to provide anything. He's just asking the question. So from that challenge, he doesn't have a right a paper to prove it's not possible. He believes it's not possible. He's got some basis, of course, but it really is about the onus. That if you've got a belief that says life can be formed from a single cell, here's the evidence to prove it can, and that's what the challenge really was.
Yeah, no, I get that, but the scientific process is a contributive thing. So it's not. So if you disagree with you doubt a certain conclusions that the field has come to, or there seems to be a scholarly consensus between scientists on that. So what you would do is, if you doubt that, you do have to produce research, not only to usually to knock down that model or otherwise, but as a scientist, you do tend, especially as a scholar, you do tend to have to suggest other models, alternative models. So it's not usually enough just to be the skeptic or the critic at the scholarly level. As a layman, yeah, I think that's probably fair. So if he took it as a layman, but he seems to be asserting his credentials, so he should then produce primary research in that. So basically, if these studies are all bonkum that people have done, he should. So that means they shouldn't be reproducible. So he could just run the experiments again, show like these ones have failed, and it just doesn't seem to work. Now I have to run it, so you guys need to go back to the lab. But he's not even done that. He's just criticized it beyond, outside of the scientific literature that's out there.
I would say that's not really completely the full picture at all. So what James has done with all the theories that have been put forward, whether it's well, obviously in this case it's really about more chemical equations on a board, if you like, writing out a way that this could create a form of life. He has provided why each of those cases that were put forward were not valid. So he has done that. There is videos out there where he's put on where he's shown why this particular equation or this connection or whatever it was doesn't work or cannot work. He has demonstrated that. So that has been put available. You may have not watched it by the sounds of it, but it's not a case that people have put forward these theories and he hasn't been able to counter argue it. He has. He's every time, because he said if somebody can genuinely prove there is a way and demonstrate it even as a chemical equation, he would offer them the reward that he offered. So that is still out there, and that's as far as I'm aware, the latest position that hasn't been solved yet, and therefore no one has come up with either a laboratory solution or a chemistry equation that can explain with the right proof that you can get life forms from a singular cell molecule. That's how I understand it. But there is some, as I say, if you want to put your email, we can provide you the links, because it might be some stuff you just haven't seen yet. I don't know, because there is quite a lot out there. He's also been in many discussions and interviews. He's done lots of different roundtables with many Christian scientists and everything else. There's a lot out there, so it's a case of there may be a lot of information that you still may not be aware that is worth considering to get a more of an accurate position on this.
Can I just quickly speak to?
Yeah.
How do I pronounce your name? Is it Ita?
Ita, just Ita, yeah.
Well, does it have a meaning? Is it a name, or is it just a handle for?
Oh no, it does have a meaning, yeah.
What's the origin of the name?
Oh, so are you? Oh, so well, the name's from a part of Nigeria.
Okay. Ita, my name's Greg, man. I listened to a little bit of the conversation last week. I don't know about Monday night. We just had a little discussion about the how the early church looked, and we were just using our imagination and talking about how it would have looked. And I'm not trying to be duplicitous here in any way. I genuinely am interested to hear. You're on this forum. You're an atheist?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, atheist agnostic. Yeah,
atheist agnostic. I only recently learned this.
Yeah.
No, sorry. You go ahead, brother. You go ahead.
No, I'm just I mean, either label, I'm fine with atheist agnostic. Yeah, that's
okay. So, would you want to convert people to your worldview? Would you through this conversation, at the end of this conversation, if Ray and myself and Arul all said, you know what, you've got a point. There is no God, and we want to come around to your way of thinking. What would that be? Would that be ideal in your mind? Would that be an accomplishment? Would that be the end goal?
No, I'd be horrified if you listened to me and became deconverted.
Really?
I don't think I have anywhere near the knowledge, the aptitude, the intelligence, whatever all those kind of things attributes to that. I'm much more. I would like to have a discussion and then learn. So I don't want to. I'm more interested. So pretty much in the last few years, what I've become very interested in is pretty much just what people believe. I just believes in general, because it believes inform a lot of things. Like, even though people might posit that atheism isn't a belief, but yeah, okay, you don't believe in God or you're agnostic about God, but you still have other beliefs because you're grown up in society. So, and those inform the things you do, the things you say. So obviously religion has been a big thing about the human condition. So I mean, that's why religions in general interest me, because I was listening before this. I had the Hinduism live stream, and I don't actually know much about Hinduism, just bits and bobs. So it was interesting just hear some of the things like I'm probably going to be mispronouncing, but was it Ramayana? They're talking about that. So that's interesting. So those are the kind. I think it's just more curiosity and interest. So then I, and I also like to speak to people. So it's not just always knows in the books and things like that. So I just like to also discuss and see, because people might have other sources, like yourselves might have other sources of knowledge or that you could recommend. You like Ray last week noted, pointed me to James Tour, so who I'd not heard of before. So it's just out of interest. I engage in this kind of. Well, I've started recently engaging in this kind of conversation.
So can I ask you to from your perspective, then, just so I'm clear on this, are you saying that you have nothing to back up your position why you're an atheist or agnostic? Is there nothing positive? Because there is a lot of positive, so-called positive support now to why a lot of people claim to be an atheist agnostic, and there is a lot out there. Truthful or not, or whatever, but there are lots of theories out there. There's a lot of information out there. Is there anything you hold to support your position, or are you just doing it as a default position because you're not convinced there's a God well enough to hold that position?
So I guess in that regard, I'd say, so when it comes to belief, I'd be an atheist. But so when it comes to knowledge, I'd have to say knowledge about God, I'd have to say I'm agnostic, because I mean disproving a negative is a difficult thing in any way.
Right. So when you say you believe in atheism, what draws you to that conclusion?
Oh no, it's not that I believe, because I'd say belief-wise, atheism is just the default position of not believing in, not having belief in any, I guess, supernatural deity or otherwise.
And sorry to ask, so what makes you feel that's not the right option, and rather it's better to not believe there's a supernatural? Because if there's not a supernatural element or explanation to the origin of the universe and life, what would be you think as an alternative position that you would, because at the end of the day, it's like, it almost just sounds to me there is some reason why you're holding on to atheism and agnosticism. It's not just as a kind of because I can't be convinced there is a supernatural being out there, I'm just going to go with atheism, agnosticism. I'm hoping to think you've done some degree of reading and research to say there is a reason why you're currently holding this position, apart from the fact that you're at this point in time not convinced there's a supernatural being.
So I mean, it's hard to say because I've never believed in any deity. So it could be a combination of my neural networking, this just works like that. I can't believe. So if, like, let's assume there was a gene that makes you believe, and let's say I lack that, or it's switched off, maybe I'm incapable of believing in a higher power. Or it could be I grew up so I've lived in a couple of places over the years. So maybe that my upbringing, I've just grown up in I just happened to, at a time where, it was between, without me knowing, this was between going, believing something or not. I might have grown up in an atheistic society and I just didn't pick up those beliefs. So it's hard to say why, because this has been my default position. But I guess I don't think there's any specific reason why I don't necessarily believe. I'm just probably not convinced belief wise that whichever of the
okay, so in terms of what is currently out there for if you like an explanation or theory to why an atheist position is that they don't believe there's a God, is any of those things you've looked into? Have you considered and understood what they are? What are some of those claims or theories that an atheist has put out there, whether it's from a scientific position or philosophical position or whatever it is? Have you looked into any of those?
About what, like God existing specifically, or
no, they're the opposite. So what you get is that an atheist, well, there's many atheists out there and agnostics that don't just say they're not convinced there's not a supernatural being, but they have a very specific reason why they're saying that one, we can believe that something came from nothing, or whatever it may be. There's a number of different hypotheses out there from an atheist position. I just wondered if you considered any of those or looked into any of them.
Well, I do. I mean, I do trust the scientific, like science, as a way of discovering finding things out about the natural world. Because I mean, someone might say so. It's kind of an empirical mindset to some degree, but I wouldn't say I was a strong empiricist in that sense, because I don't believe everything is necessarily sense
So do you
data
think
only.
science has come up with some explanation to the origin of life?
I think they're very so. From when I was watching the debate, because I mean, last time I'd studied evolution in any way was like even tangentially was more like probably talking about 7-8 years ago. It's a bit hazy, but from what I was watching the debate, James Tour and Dave Farina guy, they seem to have made good headway, at least since I last had a bit of a look. I mean, again, I've not engaged with all the primary research. There's probably thousands and thousands of papers to look at. So, and I'm nowhere an expert in that. But I think they're probably getting closer and closer. But it might be that they never arrive at a definite answer for it, but they might arrive with at a high probability to show what the process was for the origin of life.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned the word probability there, because one of the main bases of doing this was, first of all, if you like, let's just take that basis that you're saying, the probability, for example, that something can come from nothing. If you look at mathematically, what would that be? That's one thing. And then the probability of a single life form from that form being able to create multiple cells to create a full living life form through, if you like, a uncontrolled material process. Again, the probability of that, and these are some of the major atheist positions in terms of a explanation to the origin of life. Both of those come with a incredibly tiny probability. We're talking, as I mentioned last week, 10 to the power of a trillion 10 times trillion to the power of a trillion. We're talking about incredibly small numbers to say something have either come from nothing or something came from a single life form to create through a uncontrolled evolutionary process to form life. So if that's going to be a basis to believe or be convinced in something, at the moment, those two positions, which are two of the strongest positions from an atheist position, are with incredibly poor probability.
I mean, I can't speak to, I'm not a mathematician or statistician, and I've not looked into
but
that.
You understand the concept. If something has a probability of 1 to the trillion, or 1 in like.
Yeah, but I mean, when it comes to big numbers, the humans have a very bad capacity to deal with big numbers and understand them. So I think I'd trust more.
Well,
of a
the only thing I would say, anything to the power of something like a trillion or anything like that, these totally big numbers simply means it's as close to impossible. It's as good as saying impossible.
Yeah, I mean, throwing out. I mean, because for instance, there's I watched the recent debate. I mean, let me get your regarding probability. So there was a, I don't know if you know this guy Matt Dillahunty, but he had a debate with some, I don't know, some Christian in America. But he was basically they're
Matt
using
Slick, probably, yeah.
Sorry,
Matt Slick, maybe.
No, not Matt Slick. Is someone. I think he had a Greek name, the guy, but it's like recent debate. So the guy, the Greek guy or whoever it was, he was on the side of. So he was talking about Jesus's resurrection, and he came up with a using Bayesian analysis, Bayesian theorem, to calculate the probability of Jesus's resurrection. So my question would be like, do you think you can assign probabilities? I mean, disregarding maybe because Bayesian is different from some of the other statistical methods used, but do you think there's any plausibility behind using that?
Well, let's put it this way. If you're going to use the probability on the basis of natural phenomena, not on a supernatural phenomena, but on a natural phenomena, because the thing with a natural phenomena is we can have very, very accurate ways to explain how things can be formed, the probability of it just happening randomly, and so forth. Very good scientific peer reviews on this, and all what we've seen so far is, as much as it's a theory, they're not even to the not even 0.00001% anywhere near having any kind of evidence that this could happen, either from nothing or from a purely uncontrolled sort of evolutionary process. So from that perspective, under a natural environment, which we have all the controlled elements of science and chemical biology to work with, which they can look at the molecules under the microscope and so on. They can look at the way things are working. They understand the DNA, the RNA within a cell. They understand how that works, the formations, all the rules that sit under nature as they understand it. They still can't understand how either something can come from nothing, or there's a case where a single life form can then produce life in some kind of uncontrolled evolutionary process. So therefore, under those conditions, it really kind of says that this is just something they haven't got a clue. They're not even in the slightest way towards having any kind of evidence. However, when you put a supernatural element to explain these things, then it's very plausible. Because if within the natural world it cannot on its own provide an answer, it has to be something over and above. And what we see is that evidence is intelligent. It must be outside in time and space. It can't have a beginning. It has to be supernatural. It has to be intelligent. It has to be a creator, and so on and so on. And that would make sense to what we see in the universe, what we see with life. And as you say, every single chemical has these billions and billions of DNA code within them, all pointing to intelligence. Everything we know in the natural world, in terms of what we form ourselves through our discoveries, through our scientific research, always comes from a mind. We don't have examples where something is coming from a non-intelligent mind and creating something sophisticated.
May I ask, Ray, have you always been a Christian, or did you?
No.
So was it that? So before you became a Christian, or process of becoming a Christian, was it that you read all the research regarding intelligent design, biology, chemistry, all that, and you then saw that the data said pretty much gave out that it was a supernatural cause that caused all this, and that led you to become a Christian?
No. So for me, going from a completely different perspective, for me, it came in two ways. One was simply that looking under the way the world was and what it offered was to me futile, was nothing that could give you any promises in the world. It had no real explanation for life and the fact that we grow old and die. It had no plans or anything that could give us a future. It was a very dim and bleak kind of view of life if you just believe that you are just who you are and you live according to your own lives. I'm thinking with the way that we are, the way the universe is, there must be more to life than just what we see around us.
And that sounds like it was an emotional response.
Well, I wouldn't say emotional. That's simply a very logical and reasonable way to look at life and observe life and say, wait a minute, when we look how incredibly sophisticated and complex this universe is, how incredible even we are as individuals, and look at the complexity of that and how amazing we are as a human race, I come to the conclusion we can't just come to the conclusion that this is purely on the basis of we just somehow come from nowhere, we just exist, and when we
so there has to be purpose for the universe.
For me, it didn't make a lot of sense. So logically, it didn't make sense to me. And then I decided to go down the road of because I did have an understanding because of Christians' positions that I met, and one of those positions was that if you speak to God, you pray to God. That would be the beginning of some evidence that there is God, and we believe that God is revealed himself through what we call the Holy Scriptures, those thousands of years ago, and that was my journey. So it's been then a combination of my convincement that there is a God and my direct connection with God, but also the fact that all the atheist and agnostic positions that have over the time been presented have all really have been very, very weak in my eye. I haven't seen anything in any
Sorry,
way.
Ray, may I interrupt? Could I just home in on the, like, when, at what point did you become convinced, like evolution and maybe Big Bang, that those were well, evolution specifically, that was intelligent design? Was that before, during your conversion, or after you became a Christian?
Oh, after. So at that time, that
Might
was
there not be confirmation bias potentially?
Oh no, not at all, not at all, not at all.
Because once you believe something, like sorry to interrupt. It's like you've seen people that, like, well, there's Muslims that believe strongly in their faith, and I mean, Arul can probably attest to this. But in the Quran, there's scientific claims that are bunkum. Like, I mean, I can open up an immunology textbook and disprove that, but they will just like, they'll double down on it so hard, and there's no way you can get them to shift. Even though you can show the evidence, you could probably take them to a lab and show it and show all the primary research, but they won't shift. So I guess, have you ever considered that it might be confirmation bias in that case?
Not
That
at all.
you're
Not
picking
at all.
out the evidence.
This where the simple basis of where I would say this really stares me in the face. When a scientist says to me that without any evidence, that and what I would say is really substantial evidence that would be very, very convincing, that something can come from nothing, why are they even proposing it? It begs the question. I mean, it's just, there's nothing that we know in life that can make any sense that something can come from nothing. We have no case, we have no example of that at all. So what would anyone put forward?
I think the nothing isn't nothing in the sense of how we informally or layman understand. But I'll leave that to a physicist, because I don't understand. I don't know
let me
physics
put it this way. It's either we could, I mean, that's probably a bit of semantics. It's either that something has come from nothing, or as Richard Dawkins say, he's like having to backtrack a bit and say, well, we're not saying nothing in the absolute sense. Well, it's close to whatever that something is. It's so small, so insignificant, that hasn't got anything that complex that would explain a beginning of anything. It's just very, very basic to virtual. That's why it's close to being called nothing, because it is of the most simplistic level of whatever that something is. How could that then, from that, then form the universe? So that's where, to me, that makes absolutely no sense compared to the alternative, that looking how incredibly complex life is, even at a cellular level, to me makes it much more convincing that it must be because of something intelligent behind it. And that's what we have in the world. We have, where we have anything of intelligence or sophistication, I should say, it comes from a mind, an intelligent mind. So why can't the beginning of the universe come from an intelligent design? The only difference is we would call that something a supernatural thing, which we call God. So that, to me, is far from me so far to this day, apart from my peer experience of God really just absolutely nails it for me. But even just by looking at it, to believe that there is no intelligent design of what we call God behind it, to me, is absolutely absurd as an option. I just can't even.
Can I just ask, because obviously there are, because I have a friend who's he's a Catholic, and the Catholic Church affirms evolution. They would just say God set in the most. Like, for me as an atheist, it doesn't necessarily mean that evolution and being a Christian can't go hand in hand. So I guess my would be then, why are there, like, I guess you would just probably say they're all wrong, whether they're Catholics and other denominations.
An evolution is not what we're talking about here. We're just talking about the origin. So that is like a process thereafter at some point.
Oh, you're talking about Big Bang, not origin of life. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So of course, I'm not saying that the Big Bang is wrong. There could be a way, that could be a possibility. But again, it doesn't really answer the question, because where does that Big Bang originate from? It still begs the question. It can't be just some inorganic matter that just somehow explodes and life forms. That's, again, is another completely absurd option compared to intelligent design, because everything about the universe is incredibly fine-tuned, incredibly complex, everything pointing to intelligent design. Why can't we at least go down and start with that as our convinced belief rather than the far less likely is my view.
Ita,
I
so
think
far, Ita, 1 second. So far, you haven't presented any detail. I've been
Sorry,
watching
for
for a
what?
while now. So far, you haven't presented any substance at all.
In regards to what, sorry?
You've been just expressing a few qualms about this and that and so on. You haven't presented any substance, and I'd really like to find out. For
Specifically to
example,
what,
James,
sorry?
you spoke about James Tour's debate. So, what exactly was wrong in
Mm.
his argumentation?
So basically, what with the James Tour, when I watched the debate, so he put up an equation, like, so you have to, because I'm not an origin of life expert, and I'm not an expert in chemistry either. So I'll have to go by the authority of scholarly consensus. So James Tour presented so if you watch he writes on the chalkboard the equation and said that they've not solved this, and he was going one by one at the different chains of the equation, or the molecule, however you want to say. And Dave Farina produced primary research to show that the scientist had whether resolved this issue or answered this question that he was putting. And he seemed to go from different chain or different point of the equation or molecule to ask this, and this, and it, and seemed to reject the primary research at every stage. And the fact that he's not produced peer-reviewed primary research does call into question whether he's got the credential, I guess he's got the background to then speak on that, because you'd have to engage. I mean, that's how the scientific process was. You have to engage. Everybody engages with the current model, the current paradigm, and then you produce the research to show, this and that and that, and that's how it kind of continues
Ita,
on.
please. Ita, please.
Mhm.
I heard you say you're into pharmacology or something like this. Is that what you said? Your line of trade.
Yeah.
This is not how science works. Yeah, but just mentioning peer review and primary research and a few technical terms doesn't get us to the substance. I'm
You mean
asking
me
you again.
or the debater?
Yourself.
Sorry.
Yourself.
Oh,
And that's why.
no, but I go by the
One second.
scholarly consensus in that. I'm not
What's
an expert in the field, so I have to rely on the testimony of the authorities in this case. So the scientific literature.
Okay, so you're mentioning a few different phrases there: scholarly consensus, authority, scientific literature. We understand the word consensus. When everyone agrees, it's consensus. When everyone agrees. When
Well,
not everyone agrees,
everyone, but the mainstream, the main body. Yeah. Not every scientist has to agree with.
so what does consensus mean then?
So it's a bit like, take the Brexit vote if you want. 52 voted in favor, so a majority. I guess there's probably not a specific number, but I guess you'd look at the reading research in the field, say what they say, and if they seem to have a general agreement on a certain area of the research or the model they're looking at, then you can probably trust their testimony as far as you can. Obviously, the best way would be to engage with the primary research yourself, but nobody can be an expert in every field. So we sometimes have to take things on.
Sure. So you go with the majority of numpties.
Sorry?
You go with majority of numpties.
What do you mean by numpties?
I mean, this is unbelievable for me. I do science, and this is unbelievable for me that you go with the majority.
Yeah.
You use the term consensus first. Now you're reducing it to majority, and it's unbelievable for me that actually majority is what determines facts in science. It's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable for me.
No, it's a contribution of everybody to the field. So people, like, if you do a PhD, it tends to be a very deep study of a specific area, and you contribute a little piece to that. And then it's when you produce research, obviously it should be reproducible, falsifiable, things like that. So if other people reproduce your research, and that seems to be the case,
Peter, please,
and
let's cut to the chase, please. I'm very simply saying, please, please, majority does not dictate terms. If
So
you
what's the
look at,
scholarly consensus then, please? I think it'd be.
I
I'd
don't
like
think there
to
is consensus. I know there is only one
in
meaning for the
any
word.
field.
Ita. The word consensus means a particular thing. It means a
Okay.
particular thing. You can't abuse the word just because you want to. I'm not. I don't
What
mean
does it
you.
mean?
Okay, I can bring the meaning
What's
up.
what's the definition in the scientific research wise? That'd be, or even academic research wise. That'd be.
Yeah. So essentially, a generally accepted opinion, unanimity, general agreement. This is what general agreement,
So
unanimity.
so
This is,
what's general agreement? What's general in that? Like when
well,
something's generally accepted, what does it mean usually?
it means it's generally accepted. There is no one challenging
So
it. That's what consensus means. It's generally accepted.
okay,
No one has challenged it. The moment there are
As-
one or two challenge,
yeah,
Ita, please. The moment there are
yeah.
one or two challenging it, it is already challenged. It's not no longer unanimous. So consensus, it's no longer consensus. It's a disputed area already. Now, having said that, please, I don't want to get caught up in semantics here. My point
It's a
very
bit of a
simply is
strange claim, but fair enough.
my point very simply is you just need to look at discovery, the history of scientific discoveries. Major scientific discoveries were advanced many situations by one person. On a few occasions, maybe two or three. Major scientific
Sure.
discoveries happened from not the majority, but one person, two people, three people. These are the ones who advanced science. The others are just making their livelihood based on science. So please bear with me.
Yes, but
Ita, please,
when a
please,
person
please,
produces,
please,
it needs to be
please,
reproducible.
Ita,
Because
please. And this is
there's a
where Ita,
reproducing
let me focus, please.
production crisis.
What exactly was wrong in what James 2 had commended?
Oh, I'm not an expert on science. It's on the
In other
science.
words,
So
in other words, you know what you should have done? You should have
mhm.
simply said, "I don't know. I am a pharmacist. I do pharmacology or whatever.
No,
I am."
I did, because I
Let
watched
me
the
finish.
Harvard roundtable where was Lee Croning and some other researchers, and Lee Croning is a leading researcher in the field. And I mean, I will trust his testimony in that
If you
sense
want to
that
trust this
there seems
testimony,
to
that's good,
be
but that's not
a,
science. Please,
a, a
Ita,
general
please,
agreement within the origin of life research that. Oh, sorry, go on.
Ita,
Yeah.
Ita, please.
Mhm.
I'll come back to this. Please. Evidence is important. Not who says what, but evidence is important. If you can't understand something, that's fine. If you can't follow the argumentation in this case, particular case, in deep organic chemistry or whatever, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not saying you should. But what I'd
Okay.
like to comment in that situation is when you haven't followed, please don't take any sides. Please don't. Because
I can.
reputable.
I think I can if.
Well, yeah, you can. I mean, you can do whatever you want into with your life. I mean, you can think the earth
Yeah.
is flat. You can think
I don't think
you're standing upright.
it's necessarily wrong to take sides if people, if we have this system of universities that, and people that getting trained medical doctors and they're credentialed, and we have a system that seems to be working. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to take the testimony of authorities. Yeah, you're right in the sense that not one person doesn't dictate the whole field, but if when he's presenting research, um, and he's saying that the field, and he works in the field, and he's saying that they seem to have a general agreement on certain things, and other things are still under dispute, then I think that's fair enough for me to take. Obviously, if he's proven wrong, then that would undermine. So if he's lying about a certain thing, like a certain side chain in the chemical equation, there's not general agreement on that or strong evidence in favor of it. Then that would undermine him as and his the work he's done. So if that came to light, then obviously I would have to reevaluate my position. But that would obviously require me to go into the primary research, probably on watching maybe some. I guess if James Tour produced a video where, or blog post where he said, I can show that by this thing that Lee
Well,
Cronin
let me put it
is
this way
lying.
for you.
So I think that'd be
When James Tour did the tour, his challenge, he gave all these top scientists directly 60 days to come up with a solution in either the two ways. Nobody came up with anything at all that come close to fulfilling that challenge. And that's the issue. And that was with all various peer scientists, what have you, to qualify so that there's no way one particular view could then somehow persuade a position without it being truly being tested and validated. And as that, through that very, very thorough process, nothing came forward close to fulfilling that challenge. So that challenge to today still remains unresolved. No one's yet come up with anything to challenge, to solve the challenge that James Tour put forward. And that's with, you know, going to the very top scientists right across the world.
And so that's a very simple point, Ita. I'd really comment to you, please get to know the details of the argument. If you can't cope with the argument, that's fair enough. That's fine. Not everyone should. But going by what some people are claiming over some other people, purely based on some you use terms such as primary area of research and literature.
primary research. Yeah. Primary literature.
Irrelevant. I said absolutely. Of course, this is where
I'm not quite sure what more to give you than but the go. Well, I mean, I guess my point to you would be like, I guess it would be to look at. I guess a question would be: do you, when the biology textbooks speak about evolution and so on, and they do actually qualify?
Ita, let's stick to what we're talking about here.
Is it not evolution?
No way. I think the origin of life. Origin of life. The origin of life. What is the explanation?
What I was trying to qualify. Sorry, yeah. I was just saying that in the biology textbooks, like at universities, they go on, like they give currently what the field has described, like with the nucleic acids and others, but they say we currently don't know the full details or the full why or and how. But they give
how much do we know? So we don't know the full, but how much do we know?
We know bits and pieces. Like the last week when I spoke to you and I described a rough process of it. Obviously, you speak to an expert in the field and they can give you a lot more detail. Or maybe one day I'll look it up and.
How much do we know? How much do we know?
Are you asking me for a numeric or just a qualitative?
Yeah, some idea, because you said we don't know the full picture. I'd like to know how much we know. Origin of life or non-life to life. From non-life to life, people have been sort of, trying hard for.
Apparently, they've made good progress in even the last 10-15 years, apparently.
What is good progress? What have you managed to accomplish?
I'd need to know the science behind that. That's the thing.
In other words,
you need to engage with the primary literature to be able to really evaluate that, which I guess that's what my expectation on James Tour is. He should be, which he probably has to some degree. So, but I would also expect him to maybe even produce a literature review of the primary research and show why it's bunkum.
So let me try and. I mean, I'm thoroughly, I'm absolutely confused by what you're saying here. Ita,
analysis. No.
Ita, please. So chemistry, organic chemistry. You can deal with that theoretically, can't you?
Chemistry. You still have to test it on the lab.
No, if you wanted to, but
you have you still do. It's physics where you have theoretical physics. That's more, I guess, more just on the board, But chemistry, you still have to come down to testing it usually.
Well, not necessarily, Ita. Not necessarily. So there are many chemical, if you like, theories out there, and if they can write up an equation to satisfy their chemical laws and conditions, and prove that it chemically works as an equation, that's one thing. That would create some credibility. Creating that in the lab and proving it in the lab will be obviously a bonus, and that will help. But there are many things. But even from an equation, that obviously without the lab, it means it's limited, and therefore it's not going to be absolute proof in any way. But if the equation itself can be proven as an equation, it says in theory it's possible. And that's not even been the case. We've had nothing from an equation that absolutely, because this challenge of James Tour is you just write up the equation. I don't care if you can't prove it in the lab. Do me the equation. They've not even been able to do that. They've absolutely had nothing to substantiate their theory that they've put down in the first place. I could come up with any kind of theory that I could come up anytime I like. It's not down to somebody then to say, you give me a contrary proof to prove me wrong. I really need to be the person with the burden of proof is, because I'm the one who's coming up with the idea that this is possible, then I need to back it up. If I can't back it up, I need to take that theory and put it in the bin.
No, but that's what because they've had different hypotheses. So they've worked with various different, I guess, produced various different macromolecules and other molecules. So that was what the research Dave Faustina was showing during the debate. So that they've answered some of the issues or questions, or found answers to some of the questions regarding the equation that James Tour put on the board. And I guess when you produce research, that's exactly it. So you don't, someone produces a paper, that doesn't immediately mean, okay, that's the new paradigm or the new model. It's the reproducibility of it. And obviously some of these research teams, they might work in bits and areas. So people specialize in areas. So if that chemical equation is talking about that needs this side chain, someone might spend a good deal of their academic years researching just that side chain, and that feeds into the main model. So that's kind of so I guess my thing would be that if James Tour and maybe people from the Discovery Institute, I think that's still around, isn't it? Discovery Institute. So if they because I think Discovery Institute have their own labs even where they do things. So if they just take these studies, try and reproduce them, show that they don't work in a peer-reviewed way, so engage in the same way as the mainstream universities, and then show that then those guys would have to take that on board and kind of go back to the drawing board with that.
Ita, but what I'm trying to understand is, did you find details? Is the key point I'm trying to understand. Well, did you find details or did you not? If you did not, I don't want you to take decisions. This is all I have to say.
I did. When he was going through so it's just, so you have to understand that was obviously a debate I watched, and then the Harvard roundtable. So
Sure.
And the thing is that which I'm planning to do anyway, because I'm planning to kind of reread up on some of the biology on myself, but I also have to kind of teach myself, because this is going down to chemistry, and chemistry wasn't I only taught it like biochemistry. So, but this is going even further into that. So I have to get the background knowledge, which I'm willing to do, but this is going to take time before I can engage with primary research, because the biggest issue is that some people say that even my dissertation supervisor, I think said it was her or someone else, but it can be dangerous sometimes for laymen to engage with primary research, because to try and understand that is quite difficult. That's why usually, even for myself as I am, I think I would start reading with meta-analysis of things, because that's a good way to bring all the research together, or meta-analysis or literature reviews or systematic reviews. So those are a good way to look at, and then go into the primary research. But you obviously often need a lot of background information just about
absolutely, Ita, please. My point is very simple here. I'm not suggesting by any stretch of imagination that you would necessarily get on top of this. My point very simply is, either you get on top of this and you understand, or you don't get on top of this and don't take a stance. What I'm surprised by, one second,
I can't be an expert in every single field, so I have to take.
No one is asking you. Ita, one second.
I'm sorry, I have to mute you. We can't be talking over each other. When I will finish this point, then please.
Yeah, apologies for that.
All right, no problem.
Apologies, Ita. So what I'm saying is, When you can't get on top of that, don't give fluffy or the primary research, you didn't have primary research. Please don't say. Please just say you didn't understand. You want to learn? Maybe that's fine. That's fair enough. That's good. But don't say this guy primary research, that guy didn't have primary. Don't say any of that. Because for all that you know, maybe one guy doesn't have a clue yet he's a researcher. If you think this isn't happening in this world, I can tell you, I worked in engineering field, for a long time, and I can tell you very honestly, not everyone can think with the same capacity. There are plenty of issues that come up in all sorts of engineering fields, in all sorts of scientific fields. Please don't give me the fluff saying, "Oh, this is primary research. That's not primary." Please don't. Chemistry, a lot of chemistry could be done theoretically. A lot of chemistry could be done theoretically. Tremendous amount of chemistry could be done theoretically, even though we don't understand we don't understand specific details, micro details. We understand molecules, we understand atoms on a broad outer level. We understand many things. I'm not saying everything. We understand many things. So this is an area where I didn't watch exactly James Tour's debate, but if you want, I can go through and I can give you my commentary on that. But please don't just say you need to do laboratory research and only then you can come to conclusions in chemistry. Please don't.
Are you talking about laymen coming to conclusions? Are you talking about? Oh, you mean in the academic setting? Do you mean?
Who is layman? I don't know. Are you a layman in terms of chemistry?
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, I wouldn't.
Okay.
I would probably say I'm more well versed in maybe biochemistry, but I wouldn't say chemistry because
Sure.
I'd expect tertiary level education probably before I'd say I'm not a layman. I mean, there's some individuals who don't necessarily need the credentials and can self-study to become great. So I mean, that's not necessarily just because you didn't go to university. That doesn't necessarily mean.
Yeah, I mean, if you think you're a layman, that's fine. But if you think you're a layman, don't conclude also. Please don't conclude also. Don't make informed judgment on who is right, who is wrong. I heard you.
Sorry, I'm also a layman when it comes to medicine, for instance. So like, diagnosing cancers and things like that. I'm going to have to trust the doctor's testimony or doctors if we refer to specialists.
If two doctors disagree, what would you do?
Then that's when you would seek maybe a third opinion to be the.
No. Listen to me carefully, Ita, please. If two doctors disagree, could you decide who is right? If you're a layman,
most likely not.
That's exactly what I'm asking you to do right now.
But if you have to, what about that?
Well, let me ask you again then. If two doctors disagree, and if I'm forcing you to forcing you to tell me what is right, what would you do?
So if wait, repeat that again. So I'm being forced to.
There are two doctors, medical doctors, let's say in the same field, two medical doctors disagreeing, taking essentially a stand which is contradictory to each other. And you come across as a layman, self-declared layman when it comes to medicine, and so am I when it comes to medicine. Now, if I'm forcing you to say who is right, what would you do?
Oh, I think if it's two doctors disagreeing, I'd see if I can get a third opinion, at least a third opinion.
Okay, let's say the third opinion sides with the first side. How does that?
Then I would go with the first side.
You just go with the
if I'm incapable and I don't have the time to
okay, well, what if there are two more opinion? What if there is one more opinion who comes then and goes with the second side?
Well, I mean, this is becoming infinite regress at that point. Because I would then just ask if there's two doctors that disagree, two sides of doctors, both two each, that disagree, then you might ask for a fifth one. Again, if you can't engage with the literature that goes
I want to go through this one step at a time to demonstrate the folly of this decision. And the folly of this decision is two doctors disagree, you couldn't take a side. The third one comes along and joins with the first side. Now you're suddenly able to agree that the first side is right. Suddenly, somehow. You didn't know before, now you're able to. Now there is one more who comes. One more who comes, who goes by with the second guy. Now you're suddenly forced to change. What information did you have to change? What did you come to any informed judgment in this?
Sorry, in the opinion, when in the case where there's 4 doctors, so is it that 2 on one side and 2 on another side? Yeah, so kind of cancel
No,
each other
the
out.
step before that, the step before that is 2 on one side and 1 on the other side.
Yes.
And your decision was you'll go with the 2.
Yeah.
The 4th guy shows up, he goes with the second guy. Second side.
Yeah.
What would your
Obviously,
decision be?
I mean, assuming they're all equally skilled and experienced and all that, then that when I would probably ask for, when I can't have a tie, is no way to separate them, then a fifth
So suddenly when put on the spot with some very simple details, now you need to know, you're assuming that everyone is same. How do you measure the same skill? What would you do if they're same skill?
Well, I mean, sometimes it can be years. So, I mean, people go by different criteria, and so people prefer doctors who are older, and they might be biased towards older men, for instance. And so that might be.
Are you really serious right now, Ita? What research do you do? What is your field of work? Pharmacology? Is this what you do in pharmacology?
What's the issue with doctor being?
My issue is your confidence really depends on whether you've run across whether you've met the 3rd guy, 4th guy, whether you've met the 5th guy. For example, if it was a rainy day, the 4th guy didn't turn up for work, then you suddenly decide side 1 is right. But if it wasn't a rainy day, the 4th guy was able to come to work, suddenly you come to realize, hey, you know what? That is not a good decision. Can you believe the folly of this argument?
Yeah, because in the first one, when you said there's the first doctor gives an opinion and the second one comes and they disagree, you said they were on the same level, but oftentimes, isn't it that you get referred to a specialist? So you might give me your GP, he gives an opinion, and you get referred to a specialist, and the specialist says this, and there might even be like where there's a radiographer and other people that give opinion as that, but it's obviously the specialist that gives the final opinion. So if it was specialist versus a GP, I'd go with the specialist in that case. But if it's 2 doctors equal, as far as based on the example you gave, then I would like a 3rd opinion in that case. Yeah.
Your
so
3rd opinion. But what if your 4th opinion goes the other way, and your 5th opinion goes the other way? Are you really saying? If you didn't have enough time, you only had 3 people to speak to, you would decide one way. If you had 10 more minutes in your life, and if you could speak to a couple of more people, you'll suddenly change your mind. And this is intelligent decision making. Is that what you're really telling me?
Yeah, I would go by the consensus of opinion, which might
not
be on the side of
Please don't abuse the word. This is not consensus. Please don't abuse the word.
If it's out of
this
5
is general.
doctors,
When people are divided, it's not general. When people
out
are
of 5
divided.
doctors, I meant.
So when it comes to the origin of life, there is no consensus at all on this. And the only way you can get to the truth is to get into what Awal says is the detail. Because if you're going to do it on the basis of this person, that person, the numbers of one side versus the other, you might have put a blindfold on and throw a dart, at the board and see if it goes in black or red, and whatever it goes into. It's so close to random, but because the weight of the argument isn't down to numbers or whether there's more on one side than the other. It's the detail of what substantiate that and how it's been critically reviewed and counter argued. So that means a level of knowledge and proper research done to do that. You don't have to be an expert, but that is a much better process than just doing it on the basis of numbers.
Yeah, so I would trust the experts in the field on that. So
but that's the point. The experts in the field have complete contrary views. So if you've got an expert that is an absolute super fantastic biologist or chemical engineer, and you've got another one, and they both disagree permanently between each other, then you can't go by the credibility of any of them.
Yeah.
Because if they're both contrary to each other, that very, very high level, that means there's something fundamentally wrong with the way they're presenting the data, because they shouldn't be that opposed at that level. So this is where the detail then becomes the key, not the people involved. So that's where you need to say, why is that a chemical engineer totally in disagreement of something that is meant to be so sophisticated and so well put together and so argue, yet you have a complete contrary argument, which is itself comes with a lot of validity and substance, making the whole dilemma to see and work out which one is true is therefore cannot be down to the basis that you're using, because that's going to leave yourself at real risk of going down just because it's 60-40 one way or 55-45 another way. That is going to be your basis, which means you're going to leave yourself very vulnerable to believe in something that is not necessarily true.
Yeah, see, that's why I guess as a layman, when you start on any topic, it's probably good to read a comprehensive survey, a comprehensive textbook or otherwise that describes what the field is currently at, where it's currently at. And obviously you can then go further from there. But textbooks, I mean, I would trust textbooks published by academic publishers, written by experts in the field. So that was a good starting point to kind of get a overview of the field. And then you can go further from that, because they won't probably give us necessarily always as much nuance in a more accessible intro textbook versus when you start going into the secondary literature and then primary literature, and they might be like, okay, there's a broad agreement regarding the, whether it's these side chains of the origin of life equation, but then in the actual research itself, maybe they have some nuances that they're trying to argue over. So yeah, obviously it was always best if you can get down to the nitty gritty, but depending on, you've only got so much time, and so sometimes you have to take things a bit on testimony in that sense. So same way as I'm reading about like various religions at the moment. So I'm going by what the scholars in the field have said in more of a textbook or comprehensive kind of survey of the thing, and then I'll start digging in further, and hopefully one day get to the primary literature, because then I've got because there's even like sorry, it's a bit of a side jump, but like with even history, there's historiography, how you do history. So me as a non-academic layman in that, so I'd have to start broad and then come down be more specific gradually.
So, in your view, in terms of your analysis of the primary research, Nita, so what's happening? No life to life. How does that work?
I've not read the primary research on origin of life.
Okay, but okay, fine. In other words, can I assume that currently you are undecided? Because that's not how you came across when you were commenting on James Tour's challenge. You came across as if you decided to go with the other side because you've somehow established that the other guys are more intellectual, more qualified, or some such thing.
Well, they work. So James Tour doesn't work in the field in the academic sense. So he's not produced any primary literature. Origin of life research. Origin of life research. So he's a professor of nanotechnology, I believe. So I didn't.
Chemistry and nanotechnology. Sorry? Chemistry and nanotechnology. Is an American chemist and nanotechnologist. He's a professor of chemistry, professor of material science. So isn't that good enough? Why is that not good enough? What's going on?
No, there's specializations. I mean, even I think of my degree, I specialized in acute lymphoblastic, so cancer, very much cancer of the immune cells, and that would have been, if I'd gone on to do a PhD, that would have been my specialization. And yes, you can then speak, but I wouldn't then go say that I'm an expert or if I'd gone to do a PhD and then became a scholar, blah blah blah, and researching that, I wouldn't then go and say I'm an expert on tumors of the brain necessarily. I might be able to obviously.
Sorry. So you won't present yourself as an expert in relation to tumors, a brain tumor, because.
Because if I'd gone No, not because if I said if I'd gone on to, I mean, well, that definitely is the case as well. That I've not worked in that field. You don't necessarily need a PhD. You could work for cancer research, the institute, and then work that. But I meant in the sense that if I'd gone to do a PhD, it would have been on a cancer of the immune cells. So it's still cancer, but I would have specialized in that. So I would probably know a lot about all the cancers of the immune cells or immune system cancers. But the cancers affect the brain as well. So you have got brain tumors. Now there might be a whole different biology and chemistry to some degree, and gene expression otherwise going on with brain tumors. So I'd be able to comment as a what's the word, like as a someone with an education around cancers in general, but I wouldn't put myself forward as an expert on brain tumors in that sense, unless I engage with the research that is being produced by others. Then so in that case, I meant that if James
I completely understand you. When you don't know, you don't present yourself as an expert. Completely understand. Everyone should decide for themselves as to what they know, what they can think through, and then present themselves. Everyone should do that. You can't force someone else, neither can they force you. You decide for yourself. James Tower has decided for himself, and he wants to present. He is a gentleman who's involved in chemistry and nanotechnology. My problem is, why have you discounted him from making informed judgments when he has presented himself as how he has presented himself, and he is a chemist and a nanotechnologist? Why have you discounted? Is that because the field, the challenges he posed, they were all related to chemistry fundamentally, and he is a chemist? So I'm not sure why you have discounted him when you didn't understand the details of the argument.
Pardon? What was the last?
When you didn't understand the details of the argument, why did you discount him?
Oh, the main reason was because well, there are two reasons. One was the main one. He hadn't. When I looked, I couldn't find any primary research that he'd produced in the origin of life field. So an expectation, well, it's usually an expectation if you're gonna, I guess, criticize or otherwise on an academic level. So because I understand as a professor, he's kind of criticizing from an academic at an academic level. So I would want to read what he wants, even if it's just a literature review, a review of the available origin of life research. People do that. Produce literature reviews where they show that actually the thing doesn't show this. Or I don't know if you could do a meta-analysis on that, but that's a good way of also showing that what if the research shows what some people are claiming to do. So if him or someone else produced that, I'd kind of read that, or just primary research of him working in the lab to working in origin of life directly. So that, and the second one was,
in other words, for you, only those who work in labs related to origin of life could speak about origin of life. Anyone else who speaks about origin of life is not qualified, and he shouldn't be speaking, is what you're saying. Even though they are chemists and nanotechnologists, you think they are ill-qualified, pretty much useless, can't really comment on origin of life purely because they didn't get into that field.
No, I would say it's in the sense that he's you don't have to work in an origin of well, you might need special. I don't know if you need special. You probably need special equipment and otherwise. But if he equipped his lab or rented a lab where he could do origin of life research, and he did that, and he then produced peer-reviewed literature to that end, of course he can. You don't have to be a biologist or whatever the specific tagline is for origin of life research. I think probably a combination of biology, chemistry. So he could, and if him and his team or one of his PhDs doing, and he's a co-author on that, yeah, I think that's fair. But I'd want to see that first, not because all I could find were the videos on YouTube and some blog posts, and they're not peer reviewed. So that's why I wouldn't take it as.
So how many peer reviewed? How many peer? Last question, Ethan. I'm going to stop. I'm astonished. I work in engineering, and I'm astonished. I work in a field where you could have a team of 20-30 people where 25, 28, 29 claim something, one guy contradicts, and he may end up to be right many times.
Mhm.
So I'm really astonished, absolutely astonished. And I can see this is what's happening across the across many different places of so-called scientific community. I am convinced that many who come across as scientists are ill qualified to even come up with a free area where one guy's ideas could still be scrutinized carefully and understood to be true. For me, from what I see, it's a mafia gang. Many places are mafia gangs.
Oh, it's a conspiracy, you mean?
No,
Like a
I said
cartel?
mafia gang. I said
Yeah,
mafia
like a
gang.
cartel.
Sort of, unless you have peer reviewed articles through me. I mean, I know of the anyway. Maybe I'll get to that list. Get to this later. If this happened in a business that I own, all these guys will be chucked out. Absolutely chucked out. This
The
happens
origin
in
of life
an
researchers.
come again.
Do you mean specifically origin of life research, or does it apply to other fields as
Many
well besides that? Yeah.
many different fields. If people are saying, hey, unless you produce peer review, unless you go through our whatever research, you can't make any point, you are ill qualified. In my mind, they are ill qualified to even do science.
I
To
think,
me, they're not scientists. They don't have a clue as to how to do proper science, in my view.
yeah,
And
I
so
think you have a point in the sense that there has been an reproducibility crisis with a lot of primary research in various fields. Like I think psychology has been quite bad. That more than half of the papers that have been produced supposedly other people can't reproduce the results of those. So I think there's definitely, you should take a skeptical approach in some
in
sense.
my mind, with true science, one person can overthrow the research of 100 people, and therefore anyone who says that I can't appreciate that one person because he doesn't have peer review should not be doing science, in my view.
Yeah, no, I
In my
agree.
view,
So if the origin of
which in
life
this case is
research
you, which
was
in this case is you, HR, which in this
sorry,
case
what?
is you, which in this case is you. If you do good science, please, I request you to get to the details or not take a stand. If you want to take a stand purely because someone didn't produce peer-reviewed articles in that particular field, whereas he might be a very intelligent guy, otherwise, I'm anyway. That's fine.
Fair enough.
That's my comment. This is my comment. If this is if this is the science that people do in my company, they're all out. They would be out in academia at my work, but in my business, they're all out. These are people who are, in my mind, sort of you use good terms, cartel. These people are not
Cartel,
fit to do science. They are out.
right.
Science is done when there is pure good liberty, where one guy can challenge healthily and overturn the decision of 100 guys based on just the content of what he is saying, not based on whether he sat in a lab somewhere and didn't sit in some other lab somewhere and didn't have peer-reviewed article somewhere. Those things are irrelevant. Anyway, so I'll stop there. And I was going to say, Ita, so okay, so that was James Store's comments on James Store's debate. How about so origin of science, origin of life? Have you got an informed judgment at all? Are you familiar with the field at all or not?
Do you mean have I worked in the field, or do I know anything about the field?
I personally don't care if you worked in that field or not. I genuinely think there are people who can follow a field because they're very intelligent. They don't have to work in that field. They can fairly pick up multiple fields and they can understand material in the fields. So I'm not asking asking you if you worked in the field. I'm asking you, do you have an informed judgment in relation to whether life would come from non-life?
Oh, I mean, scientists themselves haven't fully nailed that, so I probably wouldn't say I have an informed judgment. It depends, guess what you would define as informed.
Sorry, I just picked up on what you said there. Fully nailed it. Yeah, did you say something like that science haven't fully nailed it yet?
Yeah, I think they, from what I've seen, remember reading from the
Wouldn't a
they
better
haven't.
honest answer say they're not even close?
No, I'll go by the testimony. So if they say that we don't know that we have a good deal of evidence to support the origin of life research, what model they're proposing now. At the moment, yeah, I'd go by the testimony and trust that to not probably super strongly, but if I get the time, I'll try and look into it more because
So what I would
I
say,
think
like I was saying, is that people could say a lot of things, and they could make that their theory or hypothesis is very substantial, and they could claim that they are very close to proving that life can come from nothing. But until you can actually check the quality of the work and get it properly tested and critically challenged, it could be to a large extent completely preposterous, and it's just them trying to be very disingenuous about the realism of their theories, because at the moment there really hasn't been anything that's been clearly proven and substantiated where something can come from nothing. There's absolutely nothing out there even close. So anybody saying that they're close to finding out is not really being honest, because there is absolutely nothing out there. And we've researched and searched and searched and searched and searched, and I've seen absolutely nothing. I know Howell hasn't seen anything. If you can
Yeah,
present something, that's a different ballgame. But we see absolutely nothing that's even resembles even a 1% or 0.001% of likelihood that something can come from nothing.
yeah, I think I mean it could be that can never be really answered satisfactorily, but I mean I think that's the great thing about, well, I guess sciences and other things. You always sometimes when you give an answer, it just produces more questions. So I guess people will just keep looking and just curious minded and interested. So I mean I fully
So out of
on
curiosity,
the side of that.
if through your research, and
Mhm.
sorry, I didn't mean to stop before you,
No, go on.
you finish, but just to say, if through your research you don't get anything that convinces you that science has the answer, what are you going to do?
Oh, then I would probably take more of a. Oh, so if
No, I
it
mean
really
at the end of your life, if at the end of your efforts, when you have now exhausted all your efforts, you come into the end of your life, you've got no answers still, because to be honest, when it comes to science at this level of degree of research, it could easily take them 20,000 years to get the answer. So in a lifetime of an average individual, even at this stage in 2024, the realistic chances they come anywhere close to even the tiniest of percentage of reality to proving this during your lifetime is also to the 1 to the billion trillion likelihood, say, which is kind of where we are at the moment with this. What would you then do when you come to the end of your kind of life and say, okay, it's still science has got nowhere near proving anything? What am I now going to do? I'm like running out of options. You could say, well, I've just run out of options and just chance my arm on the basis that maybe whatever the consensus is, or the majority of people go in a certain direction, just hope they're true. Hope their theories are actually true, despite the fact there hasn't been any real substantiated proof behind it.
Yeah, I mean, there might not be any answers within like definitive answers in my lifetime. But I mean, if you think about me personally, what I would say at the end of my life, if I don't have a solid answer to that from what I've been capable of researching, I mean, just the process of discovery and learning is something I enjoy immensely. So even if I don't have all the answers, and I don't think, I mean, I don't think, I guess based on my world view, probably it might be that we can't have all the answers, probably. But I'd be satisfied just having done the research and learned things, because I mean that's what I enjoy. Reading up on various things. So I don't think it'd be a wasted time. It just might be like, oh, shame I didn't get to hear the answer to this, but maybe one day they will discover, and some James
So
in
what about this?
5,000 years gets there. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so just one. What about this as a quandary, if you like? That if there is more to life and there is an answer to beyond our life, there is a supernatural being out there. And if we can connect to that supernatural being, we could actually have a life that would be eternal.
Oh, sorry, Ray. May I interrupt? Sorry to be too rude.
Sure.
It's just regarding a supernatural entity, call it God. I think even last week when we spoke, I don't think the position of a deist, so there's some sort of a supernatural creature. I don't think I think that's a position you can hold, and I don't think I'd be able to, at least myself. I don't know if there's some philosophers out there that can, but I wouldn't be able to disprove that. So I'm perfectly happy thinking that there's a possibility that there's a supernatural being out there. It's just I can't. I mean, obviously, what I'd want is some sort of evidence and proof for it. So that can be. I mean, science probably can't do that, but there might be logical proofs and otherwise that you engage in.
Okay, that's
I
fair
guess
enough.
then the
So-
next step would be from the
Sure.
deist one is the
Alright.
personal God.
Well,
the
good
deist.
news for you is we can help you with that, if you like, journey, because we had that on a Friday now. We have on Friday nights Christianity, which is being under scrutiny. So that is looking at the Christian position, the belief in that there is a deity that we call God, that we believe that as a Christian,
God,
yeah, as the only true God, that is the creator of the universe, and how he has provided evidence of his existence to us at a personal level. All that kind of information, which if you really want to explore, join the stream on Friday nights, and I would highly recommend doing that. And you can obviously you'll be more than welcome on the stage and ask questions and further that inquiry, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's the Jesus' resurrection I did want to speak on today, but yeah, I'll leave that for I guess tomorrow if I can make it tomorrow on the stream.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken up quite a bit of your time again, sorry. So I don't know if you want to just me to hop off and someone else come on. I mean, I'm happy to go on talking still if you.
Yeah, I
anything you
think
wanna
probably at this
engage.
stage we've probably gone as far as we probably can go, because
Yep.
we got a good understanding of where you fall, and I think it just needs that we would encourage a slightly more thorough and more detailed approach than just going on based on just consensus of different experts, when these experts are seriously challenged by other experts, leaving the whole matter to be under question, to then start looking at the detail to why this is the case. So that's all I recommend. But at the meantime,
Yeah.
I think we pretty much covered your current position.
Yeah, no, that's
I don't know if there's much more to say, really.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say even if I was to become let's say a Christian, there's still various denominations that do hold to the, the true that evolution happened as the way science explains it. So that doesn't necessarily mean even if I became a Christian, that would mean that I would necessarily believe in the young Earth and the evolution, macroevolution not being a thing and stuff like that. So I don't think those are necessarily. So I wouldn't ever say to a Christian like you can't believe in evolution, because there's the Catholic tradition, Orthodox tradition that do. I think also the Eastern Orthodox hold to that. So I guess that's also something kind of. I don't quite understand how, as I guess a certain Protestant denomination, you'd assert that over Catholic tradition, otherwise that it's a young Earth, while Catholics would.
Well, the way we would look at it very simply is a much more simple approach than that. And our approach would be simply to say that as a Christian, that's because we believe in God. And our position in believing God is that we believe that the Bible is God's word, inspired through various writers to give evidence of who God is and what his purpose is, and gives us details about the origin of the universe, the earth, the way the creation was made, various events, why through the Bible itself we believe that in the young earth, and so on. So once we have that information, on the basis that if you have, no matter what your denomination is, that you believe in the Bible, then your basis must be reconciled to those scripture. And if a denomination goes astray, and there are many denominations that do, believe you me, it's not a case of whether one denomination over another, or whether which one is the flavor of the month. It's more about if they believe in evolution, if that evolution doesn't reconcile with scripture, then they put themselves in a very precarious position, which means they're not really believing in God properly, because they can't go against what God has defined, what God has clearly, factually established in scripture, if they're going to believe in God and believe in that scripture. So there are,
so those are the unbiblical kind of churches you talk
there
about.
were, yeah, and sadly there are many of them. So the answer is not what the churches, who's in the church, but it's what they teach. And can you reconcile it back to scripture? Because that's its benchmark, is scripture. That's God's word. If they're believing in God and in God's word through the scripture, then the easy answer is, well, what you're believing isn't in scripture. Why is that? And then you can very quickly eliminate those options. And that's kind of what I do. Well, that's why I'm a Christian, because I've seen all the other denominations in terms of other religions, and it doesn't stack up. So once you realize just believe in the God and you have great evidence there is a God, it doesn't mean just because you have a belief in God that makes what you believe is true, because you then have to look in what is the detail that is provided as evidence of how God has created the earth, what he teaches, and so forth. And if you go down another path of believing in, if you like, at the end of the day, another God, as we clear, there can only be one true God. Any other variation on that is a false God. It's not the God of the universe that has clearly identified how he created the earth to some degree. And it's not in obviously super detail, but there are some very clear distinctions that give us an idea that when the earth was created, when it first came about, which is therefore why we believe it's a young earth, there are major events like the Noah's flood, which provide great deal of details of archaeology and fossilizations, etc. They explain a lot of detail about.
So is it biblical literalism then, kind of what you hold to?
Yeah. So I believe that. Yeah, I believe that the Bible, it can only be interpreted in terms of the creation of the earth, the heavens, the creation of the first man, Adam and Eve, first humans, is absolutely literal. It cannot be read through cover to cover in any other way to make that conclusion. I do approach some of them don't believe in that, but they're going to really struggle to reconcile that with the way the Bible is written. Because if you read the Bible innocently from cover to cover, from Genesis to Revelation, you can see, as you start from Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and so on, you're starting to see a clear continuation of Adam and Eve, its offspring, through those offspring and those families, and through those families, one or two recognizable identities came from that. People like Moses, Abraham, Noah, and so on. So you can see that it cannot be anything but literal. It wouldn't make sense otherwise. I mean, you might as well put the Bible in the bin if there was no clear explanation other than it must be literal, because it all ties in to the lineage, the events, all being very graphic and very specific, which to a large extent has been archaeologically proven. It all ties back. These are clearly literal events. That's a literal. So why would you therefore not believe from the very beginning of first Adam and Eve that's also going to be literal? Because it doesn't make any other sense otherwise. So to believe that's some kind of poetic language or some metaphor would leave you really, really in a very, very difficult position, a much more harder position to then substantiate it as you then read further through scripture as events unfold.
Okay, well, can I just ask us? I mean, our rule's not here. I guess our rule holds to the same biblical literalism, and Greg as well, I assume. Okay, okay, just good for me to know, because obviously when I come on probably try and come on tomorrow. So because obviously if I speak into a Catholic, they'd say that okay, this is up for this is interpreted this way. So I kind of then have that in the back of my mind that if you take a biblical literalist approach, it's obviously
and I would highly recommend just read the first five books of the Bible and tell me what your thoughts are. And it wouldn't take too long to read just the first five, and that will give you very good insight to see what your view is in terms of whether you believe it's literal. Because I can't see it any other way, in my honest opinion, the way I've read it. So that might be a good suggestion as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've read them before, but I mean,
Okay.
as I'm trying to learn, that's something definitely I'll have to be, have to be referencing the
Well, the thing I do like
Bible.
Peter, even though
Yeah,
we may not agree and some of your approaches may be interesting, is the fact you are looking for truth. You are taking those steps in that journey.
yeah,
I
yeah.
continue to
And
recommend to do so. And
may I just,
go on.
sorry, before I just hop over, I mean,
Sure.
Arul's not here, but I'd like to just apologize again when I was talking over Arul a few
Not a
times and
problem.
yourself, I think. So,
That's all right. No issues.
yeah,
Mate.
sometimes I
That's
just
all right.
ramble on a bit.
Get a
So,
bit passionate. That's okay. It's no problem at all. I appreciate the apology. You've been a really great, respectful individual, a little bit more respectful than some of the people in the comments. So that was a bit interesting. I don't know if you read any of it.
is there something going on in the comments?
Yeah, there's some very interesting characters that don't seem to have any limitations to their level of.
Anything for me? Anything for me? Anything about
No,
me?
I don't think so. I think there's a lot of it
Disparaging.
it's I mean, one or two just people from the Christian perspective have been quite positive, but some of those that aren't, they just throw. It's more just a lot of slurs and no substance to it really that I can read. I haven't read everything, but it's been a little bit. So
Okay.
well, not so respectful, but you have been. So that's the important thing. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I try to be. I mean, it's your platform, so I try and that's why, like with the Jesus resurrection, I did come in, hot off of press wanting to talk about that, but I understand that you've changed the format a bit there, so I'll probably you'll probably see me more often on the Fridays, and if I have something more about science or wait, would you still? If we discussed morality, I should probably attend this Thursday one, shouldn't I? If I want to discuss morality.
Well, it's going to be a bit of both, I would say, because morality is from the atheist agnostic position. So if you look at it from that position, I would say you come on this stream. But if you're looking at it to understand the
or challenging the Bible's more,
yes, then I will go on the Fridays.
Oh, okay. I'll try and keep that in mind. So I'll just try and pick the right stream. But I'm sorry, I've taken time, so I'll hop off now and probably see. I mean, if I don't know who's tomorrow, Arul, but I'll see probably tomorrow if I can.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thanks for your time.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye. So apart from it, we've had some interesting comments in the chat. Some people obviously have got some interesting manners or lack of manners to spit out some really quite coarse remarks, but there you go, that's the world for you. But if anyone here has got some kind of sensible, reasonable, rational kind of view, they're more than welcome to join the stream. We're not going to entertain anybody with foul language, anybody with disrespect, and go down any kind of personal route, throw in any kind of ad hominems or anything like that. We won't encourage that. But if you want to have a decent conversation to really support your atheist or agnostic position, you're more than welcome to join the stream. So I don't know if you heard Brother Errol, but Ita did want to have and explore an understanding more so from the Christian position. So he's going to make an attempt to start joining the Friday streams as well.
Yeah, I think that's best for Ita because of course Ita comes across as someone who perhaps is a bit reluctant on getting into the details of some of the areas of scientific claims where he's not in that field. Sure. So I think best is he deals with the biblical side arguments, just to see the soundness of the arguments from history, from morality and everything else. So I'm looking forward to that.
Lovely. So apart from that, quite a few people on the chat. I haven't been able to, obviously, difficult to keep track of this. I don't know if anyone has specifically, but there is a lot of comments. Some of them, like Killer, seems to be quite quite crude with some of his comments, so I don't think that's really appropriate. But if there is anybody on this forum or is in the chat that would like a respectful conversation to put forward the reason why you believe the atheist agnostic position on the origin of life, then you're more than welcome to join the stage. So yeah, that's what we're offering. Who have we got here? Unique. So that's probably Christian there. Square Right. Oh, J Bond. Probably in there somewhere, as usual, disguising himself. many.
It's hard to keep track of when people are so jobless. They come in various forms. I can't. Anyway, no, but this area, the origin of life, the origin of universe, these are serious areas, and one of the challenges for us is to really launch some serious sort of arguments, because people are made to wait. People are made to think that, oh wait, you know what, we're waiting, science can produce results maybe later on, maybe in 20 years, maybe in 30 years, maybe in 70 years. I see, for example, Hinduism leads to the same sort of, there is no urgency sort of mindset, and atheism and agnosticism also leads to that same mindset. So yeah, it's really sad. And with scientism, which is partially, what Ita was expressing there, it was it's scientism with the hierarchical mindset there. If you have a PhD degree, then you know better. It really doesn't help. Abby is there, and Abby is asking a question. I've heard some Christians say Genesis is metaphorical. And then Adam was chosen by God from a population of pre-existing humans. What are your thoughts? Untenable. Abby, untenable. Based on the details, it's untenable historically, theologically, logically, and so on. Genesis is literal. Without Genesis being literal, I better give up. If Genesis isn't literal, then Christianity doesn't make sense at all. It's as simple as that. And so people who, but of course, you might have come across people, even at Speaker's Corner, who might come across Christian, who go around claiming the Genesis isn't literal. I mean, what can we say? If Genesis is not literal, it does not make Christianity doesn't make sense. It will not make sense.
Any other thing I spotted on some of the comments was, just to call it out, some big thank yous on some very nice appreciation for all the hard work you're doing in Speaker's Corner. I will, and some of them are commending that they really love your approach and the way that you've conducted yourself with some really, really powerful arguments. So it's been really appreciated and recognized by a number of people in the chat. So that was really quite a nice thing. I thought would be worth mentioning.
Yes, and that's part of our mindset, isn't it, Ray? Essentially, we want to engage in friendly conversations, but robust conversations. We are far from being anything like experts or anything, but through God's grace, it's part of our challenge, and so we're grateful that the Lord is helping thus far in doing something like that. It'll be lovely if Muslims are willing to do the same, friendly, intelligent, meaningful conversations. There are, in my entire, many years, there are a few who have been like that.
Yeah.
At Speaker's Corner. The rest of the guys, they get agitated and all sorts of different things.
I was there last Sunday, and I mean, I haven't been there for years, and I was really shocked with the increased level of aggression, the increase in just almost throwing any kind of argument without really any real decent substance to it. There were quite a few visitors there as well, apart from yourself, where there was really starting to be some very good Christian arguments, and many, whether it's Muslims or atheists or whatever out there, have really not provided a very good response. And I think we are seeing a shift from that perspective. But the real difference is there is a lot more aggression attached from some of those quarters, which is really, really a shame. But that just goes to show, you know, if you haven't got real, you know, proper sort of arguments, what do you resort to? And you know, this is part of their frustration, is that you can't have an attainable, rational argument, no matter how smart or clever you want to try and present it. The devil is in the detail. You know, if it can't be properly substantiated, which of course many of their arguments can't, because now they're being challenged, they don't have a response. We had an example of where was Ahmed prophesied or named in the previous scriptures. That's a very strong argument directly in the Quran. Yet there's no evidence. So this is part of what we're seeing. People basically making loads of claims, don't have the evidence, but still throwing it out there. And that's, you know, to us from here, from an agnostic point of view, atheist point of view, is where scientists have been continually putting out there, at best, a theory that they've had no way close to substantiating it, and just hoping if enough people keep pressing it through the schools, through the medias, whatever, or enough numbers of scientists support it, then hopefully people are just going to believe it nevertheless. And that's very scary.
Yeah, I mean, I know from sources that I am familiar with of Akila is joining.
Oh,
Killa.
wow.
Was Killa respectful? Let's get him.
Not especially, but
Let's try.
let's try.
What do you think, Ray? It's your
Yeah,
decision.
let's
So
give them a quick go. But you have to be respectful, Killer. At the moment that is not the case, we will remove you, so you're aware. So welcome on, and let us know your thoughts.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
How you doing?
fine.
by God's sake, you're fine, Killa. Please go ahead.
Well, I'm sure you're aware of my position, obviously, with the comments. So I think you want to scrutinize atheism.
Yes,
Indeed.
Ray, why don't you go ahead with the
Charles, so
original?
origin of life, Keller, what's your best argument to believing, from an atheist point of view, the origin of life?
Okay, so before you answer, or I answer that, we're aware that obviously atheism as a belief is just a rejection of religions. So every atheist won't give you one answer for the origin of life. So, okay, so there are many theories as to how it may have happened. You've got ones which are based on if a meteorite or comet hit the Earth and brought molecules. There's other versions where different things hit maybe Mars and places like that, and molecules from there came through. There's many varied versions. Do I have a belief of where it came? Originally, no, but I know from the part where cells and organisms were involved on Earth. That's where we get evolution from, etc.
Okay, so just qualify what you're saying. I'm a little confused, because we can appreciate that there's two distinctions here. There's the first distinction is what we really are saying definitively, the origin, the absolute origin of life, versus any kind of understanding in the process of life from a secondary step, if you like. So not from the very origin, but then from step 2 or step 3 or whatever it may be, which is then post-origin process or evolution or whatever it may be, isn't so much what we want to look at. We really want to drill down to what is the as far as you understand in terms of all those theories out there, would you say is the most convincing for you to explain the absolute origin of life? And would you say that origin of life is, say, for example, coming from either nothing, coming from some sort
So
of
you're sorry to interrupt,
what
but
option would you go?
it depends. So as I said, that it depends on which viewpoint or where we're
No,
starting
I get
off
that.
from.
Well, what's your number one for you? So we can start with that. What's your top of all those views? Which would you pick as your top, the one that you like the most or most convinced of?
So the Earth one I already explained. There's many theories. I couldn't give you 100%, etc. If you're going further back and saying, right, okay, but let's go back to things that are like the Big Bang, etc., then it would be that where we see an inflation, etc., things like that. Then you get etc.
Okay, so you're saying
planets,
you're
and
saying
then
the origins from the Big Bang,
yeah, and then somehow after that, Earth gets life.
right? So
That
so
somehow
that,
how Earth gets
okay.
life is the bit where we're still fuzzy on.
Sure,
But prior
sure.
to that, how the Earth formed, etc., we're still.
I got you. So there's two phases there. So obviously the phase of the Big Bang and thereafter isn't the explanation of the origin of life. It's the explanation of how life started to form in some organized way from just some sort of inanimate object or whatever you want to call it. This Big Bang mass of organic material or whatever
but
it is.
the theory
But the
doesn't
question
say
would be where.
what happened
My
before.
question would be. Sorry, let me just quite quickly finish. What my question would therefore just begs the question is where did that Big Bang come from?
Well, that's what I was just saying. It doesn't answer what came just prior to the Big Bang. It's saying we know that these things occurred, where singularity, etc., things like that happen. Prior to that, we don't know. We don't even call it time because we don't know if time existed.
So there is some atheist theories out there. So the atheist isn't just saying we don't know. They actually are coming out with a very clear hypothesis of what they believe is the origin of life. So have you looked at any of those?
Yeah, but which is why I know there isn't a clear hypothesis. There's string theory, there's multiverse, so there's not a clear theory. But there are ideas
Okay.
how we would ever get to before time. I don't know how they would do that. No.
Okay, so have you looked therefore in the option that intelligent design could be a very definite, plausible option?
So it depends on how we define design. We can make abstract rules as humans do, patterns, etc., where we associate design with things. But if you're saying, which I think you are, because you're obviously religious, where if you're saying something designed it, the best, or what some religious people try to say is, well, God was the first domino, and then sure, you get everything else that you get in science, but he was the first domino. But you don't accept that, right? You're saying, no. It's not just the first domino. There's this being that wanted to, really create Earth special for us, and then somehow created humans special, etc. That is not substantiated anywhere.
Okay. Any thoughts, Aaron?
In other words, you're essentially saying that in your position, you don't know how life started.
Again, yeah. So for the Earth, we don't know. There's many versions of how it could have. Prior to that, there's obviously, we know how the Earth formed itself, etc.
We know?
Then prior to how the Earth formed, yeah, that one we know.
We know?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Because how gravity and its first forces brought mass together is something we know. It's why we see sphere type things elsewhere other than just Earth as well.
So how do we know?
Because the evidence, i.e. some of the maths, some of the observations, things like that, add up. And so we form a consensus and say, okay, this is why it's most likely to be.
Kila, let me be clear. Are you sure you know that math and evidence adds up, or are you just saying this because because others have told you this?
I don't get what you mean. Others would have had to tell me, because obviously I'm not some master genius that's first been born and thought of this. But then, yes, maths works in
Sure.
many fields.
So,
Science works in many fields.
sure. So, in other words, are you saying that you personally are convinced that it all adds up, mathematically and scientifically?
I'd go one step further. So let's say I wasn't personally convinced, science would still continue to operate correctly. You know, you walk into a hospital, the biology that we've learned, chemistry, etc., the sciences we've got from there to get to a hospital, etc., it would still function. That there wouldn't be some, massive change to that, whether I think it's true or not either. So
Which I'm a bit confused.
medicine,
Which
medicine is
medicine?
uses
How
evolution.
medicine uses ideas of evolution?
Yeah, that's how we make better medicine, because obviously different things evolve, bacteria, etc. We have to find newer, better things. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a need to make newer drugs. They wouldn't be resistant to it.
Killa, please explain which portion of evolution is used in medical science today?
In most of what we know, for vaccines, etc. Like you
For vaccines, we use evolution. This is a bit
Yeah.
strange to me. This is news. So, what exactly about evolution is used in vaccines?
I mean, I would have to look it up for you. I'm not an expert on vaccines.
But are you aware of some broad top level details? If you come across very
So-
confident.
So before, you probably weren't listening to the statement. As I said, similar to the hospital, I don't have to be an expert on every department in an hospital. I'm not a radiologist, right? I can't give anesthesia. I'm not some expert in all of the fields. So in this case, when you're trying to pinpoint me on some what subject is, or sorry, what portion of evolution is used in vaccines, no, I can't break it down for you because I'm not an expert. But just how all the other sciences work, similar to this, I can look it up for you, and the science would show that it is used. Would you accept that, though, is the question after? Because
This would be ridiculous. This is news to me. This is absolutely news to me that evolution is somehow used in developing vaccines.
Okay, so just to be clear, let's say we have some sort of virus, right?
Some form of what? Virus. Okay.
Virus, right? And we give you a medicine to counter that virus, and then a year down the line, you get that virus again, right? What has that virus had to do to counter your immunization that you would have built up when we gave you the medicine for immunity?
Sorry, come again to the last
okay,
part. What is the virus?
So you got a virus, right? We give you a vaccine to immunize against it, right? Cure you of that illness. Yeah, you with me? Right? You're
Yep.
immunized. Year later, that same virus comes again and affects you. What has it had to do to counter your immunization that you were given?
So which kind of virus do you have in mind here?
Pick any you want. Take a name you like and go with that. It evolved. Oh, sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What is it doing when we've given you an immunization to it for it to be able to affect you again?
Killer,
Flu
please.
virus. Flu virus. If you need a name.
Okay, that's wonderful. Because when you say virus, because HIV is also by a virus. So I don't know what you have in your mind. Okay, now we are narrowing down. That's good.
Okay.
So with flu, your point is what does it? The simple thing is there is no one flu virus. That's a simple reality of things. I don't know if you're aware of this.
Yeah, but that's not the question. We're talking in, let's say you're in the lab, right? I'm saying the same virus, the very same virus, same
What do you mean
petri.
same virus? There is no one single virus, one single flu virus. No.
So when they research viruses in a laboratory, do you think they go back out and start to see it do what it does outside, or do you think they wait, they watch it under a microscope, they test it again, obviously on animals, not a person. I'm putting you in the position of an animal. But the question still remains. You get this one virus, flu virus, the same one. We call it that. We'll call it the owl flu virus. Yeah, it's a very particular one now. You've got it. A year later, okay, we've immunized you from this virus. A year later, same virus in that petri dish. We bring it out. We take a bit of it and we give it you again. Owl virus, same one. What does it do for it to be able to break down your immunization that we gave you?
So I mean, okay, Killa, I'm really not sure if you know the details of what you're saying, but I'm going with your words right now, whether you know it or not. If your point is if the same virus, that's your point. If the same virus,
owl flu virus, we gave it a name.
What do you mean? But there's no one flu virus. Why? I thought this is what I'm thinking.
Sure,
maybe
but
you
I'm
don't
saying
know
in
the
this
subject area.
But in this hypothetical, we're in a we've got the best laboratory. It's just you and this virus and a machine that's going to give it to you. And a year later, same machine, same virus, you're getting it.
When you say same virus, what do you mean? The same exact
same one,
flu
same
virus?
petri dish, same petri dish.
The same exact same flu virus.
Same flu virus. But it's been left in a petri dish, right? So we leave it in a petri dish. We let it do its thing.
Killer, please.
Yes.
This is not the most problematic situation that we run into with flu at all.
Could you answer it?
Killer, please listen to me.
Sure.
Because this is not the main problem that laboratories, the medical field runs into with flu virus. This is not the problem that we run into. The problem we run into with flu is that there are many millions of similar flu viruses.
Sure.
And it's hard to predict which ones are going to impact in which season. It's hard, really hard, because there are many.
Sure. But we
and
have
that is the problem we run into. So I don't know what
we have this laboratory where we're giving you the same one. What I'm asking you, because you could just say, oh well, if it's the same virus in the same petri dish, a year later it won't do nothing because you've immunized me to this very virus. Other viruses may change, but this one won't.
Whoa. Killer. Calm down, man, please. You need to. Your details are inaccurate. You're throwing
the virus change after a year? Yes or no?
Okay.
Enough to break your immunization down.
Sure, please.
No, but yes or no, and then you can answer.
If you think this is a simple yes or no answer, you just don't know the field at all.
Okay, but you understood the question, right?
Which is perhaps the case with you.
No worries. You understood the question to really answer it to me, yeah?
You're repeating the same point multiple times.
Okay,
It'll serve much better if you... Yeah, cool. Now, let me repeat from where I left off last time. The most important problem with flu that the medical field runs into is not what you have in mind, but it is rather the fact that there are many variants of flu virus, and it's really hard to predict which one is going to impact in which season. That is the most important problem medical field runs into. Now, having said that, in relation, but you are saying in your hypothetical scenario, you're really talking about the same flu, the exact same flu virus with the same DNA impact, being injected into you again. Here, the problem simply is just I need to look into this, but in terms of vaccines, terms of the flu vaccines, maybe I shouldn't say most. Many vaccines do not have a lifetime of 100 years.
Why is that? Why is that? Do you think? What do you think happens?
Because the body produces, antibodies.
No. Why do you think we have to make it where you say, oh, it doesn't give you protection for X amount of years? it's the same. It's because if you understand that, then I'll go back to my original experiment, which you keep trying to evade in answering. Same one after a year, right? We do nothing to it. We put it in this magical chamber where nothing else is affecting it. We pull that same petri dish out. We let the virus do what it wanted to do for a year, and we put it back into you. Why can that virus break down your immunization?
What confidence should I have that if I start speaking now, you won't cut me short again?
I'm mute. As long as you're answering that question, I'm more than happy.
Look, you asked a question. You're not the judge of the world where you're going to keep track of who is going to answer, who's not answering. Unless
if you don't
let
want
me...
to answer, we can move on. But I'm just saying, if you answer it, I'm more than happy.
Okay, it might serve well for you to stay quiet for some time and listen to the other side, and then speak. That might be quite productive, Killer. Now, in terms of if your question generally is how long will vaccines be effective in a person, well, I don't know in every vaccine what the detail is, but vaccines work on this principle of antibodies, antigens, and based on which our body gives immunity. It has a certain lifespan, and that is based on how, in the case of the particular disease causing organism, which is injected in limited quantity, the antibodies and antigens operate in relation to providing this immunity. I'm not sure of the details in every single case, but this has nothing to do with evolution. And I'm trying to understand, which is where you diverted us all from. I'm trying to understand what evolution is needed to do medical science. I'm trying to understand. You portrayed the situation as if
Shall I start?
Evolution
Do you want me
has
answer
to
that
be a
question?
reality for medical science to work.
Would you like
I'm
me to
trying
answer?
to understand why that is the case.
Ready to answer. Perfect. So here's how we understand it. So the thing maybe you don't want to say evolve, we'll call it change, we'll call it, morphing, whatever word you want to use. That virus, when we pull it out of the chamber where it's not affected after a year, it has evolved. It's evolved to be able to break down your barrier that we gave you, which is called immunization. Now, the reason we need to understand evolution is because if we don't understand that this virus is going to change down the line, yes, there are many other factors involved in, where outside there can be environmental factors, which is part of evolution. And so we look at it and go, wow, there's a lot of factors that can cause evolution. We should understand it so that when we make medicine, we can then work to counter that. And the reason we can't counter it that well is because how the flu virus evolves, we don't have, which you were right on. But when you use small fragments of science and don't understand the bigger picture, that's where you end up in your position.
Killer,
But if you look at
absolutely throwing
then
rubbish without making sense.
If you know
anything,
we can go to any.
Killer, please. If you know anything remotely about evolution, evolution comes in broadly to explain how from one or few life forms we have all the variety today. Is this something that is needed to perform medicine?
Yes.
Yeah. How many viruses change into non-virus organisms in our knowledge?
A lot.
Like
That's
what?
why we don't face
some
dangers from them, and we don't class them as viruses. There are viruses that have died out because they couldn't keep up with getting host bodies. There's viruses
listen to me again, please.
very deep in Antarctica. We
How
don't know
many
how
viruses? How many viruses become non-virus, more advanced organisms in our awareness? It's a simple question.
And did I not answer?
You did not. You spoke about how viruses die out. I understand everyone dies out. No problem.
So
That's not the question.
If a virus dies out, is it a non-virus or is it a virus then?
Okay, let me be clear. Okay, maybe I'll rephrase.
If an elephant species dies
out,
let me rephrase.
Non-elephants. How many viruses? How many viruses?
Right.
How many live viruses
Right.
in some way, shape, or form become live non-viruses, more advanced in our awareness?
Sorry. Oh, I think I've understood what's happened here. You think virus is something unto itself, right? You understand it's just a cell that causes it to be a virus, right? When it's not a virus, it's a non-virus. That's
Okay,
how
Killa.
mutation works.
Let's take one step back. How many organisms, take any organism you have in mind, how many organisms of a particular species, genus, which has changed in some way, shape, or form over a period of time into something else in our awareness?
So could you repeat that? Has what?
The challenge with evolution is not to explain natural selection. Natural selection we observe at all the time. The question is, with evolution, what we observe all the time, is it true that organisms actually evolve from one into another? That's the challenge with evolution. Do they cross the boundary of, let's say, of course, I'm not exactly saying that this is what has happened, but I'm giving you a sort of an example.
Just before we continue, because just so I can keep up with you,
Sure.
I can answer you. You used the word natural selection. Could you just give a little quick thing of what you define that to be? What's
Why
natural
is that
selection?
in right now?
Because what you said after natural selection kind of can fall into natural selection. So I need to know what your version of natural selection you're using.
Kila, let's take one step back.
Cool.
Well, let's not get bogged down into rabbit holes that you'd like us to get into, where we are defining terms and we're sitting here defining terms and so on. Very simply, evolution is where we come from very simple life forms. All of the millions of variety of life form today come from that very simple life form. This is the ultimate theory, for
Right.
which you need to be able to explain how from simple life forms eventually complex life forms begin to exist. You need to. This has nothing to do with medical science. I
Wait,
have
when you
got
say
no clue.
when you say need to, I mean, are you asking layman atheists? Because the experts of evolution already say it. Like, I mean, I can bring up an expert from evolution and see what he says on that.
But as a layman, are you aware of this? Are you aware of evidence presented at all?
Yeah, again, so yeah. So the whole reason we create vaccines, etc., which you don't agree uses evolution, etc., in my opinion, from the evidence, does all of these things, which are called natural selections and all of these terms, they're part of a tapestry of what evolution did. It's not just one thing that evolution. It's not like in its toolbox it has just one thing and it goes to it every time. Like it's change across billions of years. So when you say how can one cell get to something extraordinary, well, you give it 1,000,000 years to do some changes, and it can. Then that given 1,000,000 years can get to something else.
Yeah, well, given 1,000,000 years, I would be the king of the universe today, because there'll be
Sure,
no one else.
you could be. If you were able to live 1,000,000 years and other life forms, humans especially, could not. Yes, you could do that. I mean,
That is one
you would
way.
have all the time
That
to
is one
study
way.
and everything.
That is one way. There is
Sure.
another way. There
So
is
your
another way this
example was
could
wrong,
happen.
though, right?
No, this is one way. There is another way this could happen, and that is by simply saying all of you would be dead anyway, and therefore none of you would have had a clue that it never happened. And therefore today I can sit and claim all sorts of things I can claim, because I have the thing of 1,000,000 years, which you're not going to see. So just because you throw in 1,000,000 years, it doesn't mean you're talking science.
Are you asking humans to see millions of years?
I'm asking a very simple thing, which is where we started off. You said evolution is fundamental because it is true, because without evolution, medical science doesn't work. That's what you said. or something to that extent.
Yes, vaccines.
Something to the extent is what you said. And I am a bit surprised. I am a bit surprised that you even said that, because what we observe, what is needed, you gave the example of a virus infection, maybe even another variant of the category of virus. We are still not talking about evolution of simple life forms to complex life forms. We're not going anywhere close to that. And you are saying, because we see this, evolution is true, and evolution is fundamentally true because we are using vaccines every day. To me, that's ridiculous.
Okay, but I mean, the evidence is there. I don't know,
Evidence of what is there? I don't understand. Virus, one form.
Dinosaurs are there, which are millions of years old. We have plant life that is millions of years old. What are the life?
Okay, so we're leaving behind medical science right now, virus and so on, vaccines.
Well, we have to. You're not agreeing that a virus evolves after 1 year, as I gave you the example.
Hey, Killa,
what word do you want to use for it?
Killa, one second. Look. What you're saying is, you know what it is similar to? It's very similar to saying, hey, Arul, I saw you 10 years ago. You looked a bit different. Now you look a bit different, and therefore evolution is true. This is ridiculous.
Well, viruses have evolved over time. It's literally what's happening. You would be different.
And that is evolution for you?
Cells evolving, yeah.
And that is evolution for you? It's unbelievable. So the fact that I had to cut my nails yesterday means evolution is true? This is ridiculous. Is this the level of science you want us to talk about here? Absolutely ridiculous.
I understand it very well. I don't know what else it would be. Unless cells are evolving in your body, yes, you don't grow anything.
Okay, sure, sir. Cool. Killa, please. Let's be honest. Let's be serious. Very simply, I am growing, and by growing, I don't mean in size. I am growing old as time progresses, and this is a fact. This is reality. This has nothing to do with whether the claim that all life forms have come from simple life forms from the past and have developed into what they are today. That claim is an entirely different notion. This is nothing. My growing old is not necessarily closely tied to that claim. My growing old can be very much tied to the biblical worldview. It is not necessarily true that evolution has to be true for me to get older as things progress, as time progresses. It's a simple reality. It's a simple thing to understand.
Evidence for any of your claims?
For Christianity, we have tremendous evidence. Unlike your fantasy ideas of evolution, we have tremendous evidence.
Non-scientific, though, right?
Sorry, what? None
of them being scientific, right?
When you say scientific, what do you mean?
The things we were just discussing. Like, for example, in my example of the virus, which I say is evolving, you say, not evolving, but you don't have a science to back up what is happening, right? You can't claim what you know.
When you say scientific, Christianity is not scientific, what do you mean?
I mean that people who think that Christianity, that there's some God, Adam and Eve, Jesus died and resurrected, all of that is ultimately unscientific. You do get Christians who believe in Christianity, but they treat that as mythology. They say it's...
What do you mean by scientific? You're just repeating. What do you mean by scientific? Do you mean laboratory science?
Are you doing a Jordan Peterson on me?
No. I don't know. I don't know why you're saying this, Killa. Please.
Well, earlier you said let's not get bogged down in definitions of terms, and now you're saying define scientific. We both...
Because your statement doesn't make sense.
Okay, so then explain how it doesn't. Don't ask me what scientific is. Just tell me how it's non-scientific, the claim.
Tell me how it's non-scientific.
Yeah, you're saying why are you asking scientific? Just explain your position. Why should I not use that term? You
asked me a question for which, if I need to answer, I need to understand what you mean by what you mean when you say scientific. Because you asked me the question of what evidence is there for Christianity. and your option was that it isn't scientific. Whatever evidence is, it's not scientific. For me to respond to that with an yes or a no, I need to know what you mean by scientific. For me, science is quest for knowledge. To try and
With
understand
evidence?
what.
With
Come
evidence?
again?
With evidence?
Absolutely, yeah. Science is quest
So,
for
for
knowledge.
example, gravity is that a force you recognize, understand? Not in terms of an expert, but just basic people. You jump off a
Did
skyscraper.
you ask some other question before this, Killa?
Did I what?
About Christianity and evidence?
Yeah, we're getting to that, but because you wanted to be bogged down by what I mean by scientific. What I'm saying is scientific for me is all of
Which
these
you
things.
refused to answer, and therefore I'm moving on right now. Now
Okay.
you want.
What would you want to? What were you going to
Yeah.
move on to?
No, you refuse to give me an answer, and therefore I am answering right now. Christianity is firmly grounded in terms of reality. Science to me is observation of reality in a systematic manner. It could science, for example, archaeology involves science in my mind. Evaluation of historical claims can involve science in my mind, not laboratory science necessarily, but a systematic approach to studying claims. So in my mind, these are science-based approaches in my mind. But I'm deeply aware that there are other people who have a different idea of what science is. The definition of science today is in a very narrow form. And that's why I asked you, what did you mean by scientific? But my point very simply, Killa, is this. For me to understand that I'm speaking to a human being right now, I'm using my perception, and this is evidence for me in terms of how you are relating to me. I mean, the closest candidate perhaps to the answer that you are in fact a human being is that perhaps you're some sort of an AI bot right now, because unfortunately, in the last decade, in the last 5 years, 10 years or so, this has emerged, last couple of years especially. And so, but ignoring that, I have every reason to think you're a human being, and I think that's a fairly good conclusion. Now, if I want, I could, if I had any doubt that maybe maybe this is a very serious situation, I need to inquire more to figure out if this is the case or not, I can try. But the point very simply is, to me, this is evidence based on my experience with you, speaking to you, hearing particular answers and so on. My point very simply is, for Christianity, I'll first talk about Jesus Christ.
Well, before we get to that, just so we're clear, when you say, I believe in what I can see, etc., you don't have any of that for the stuff found in the Bible, though. So how do you make those things equate?
For me, the claim that Jesus died and came back alive is a claim that is accessible to me today to evaluate.
You can see it?
I didn't say I had to see it.
Oh, moments ago, you were saying, there are things like see, speech, etc. You use senses to evaluate if I'm a human, could be AI, etc. I was just saying, you don't have all of those parameters to do what you actually believe in history. I.e., someone died,
maybe
rose,
we can go through the
Noah's Ark, any of that stuff. Like, that's what I'm saying. You didn't physically see it, so you have to go out and get evidence for it, right?
Killer. We can go through the recording of what happened in the last 5 minutes. I'm not saying I might not have made a mistake, but what I'm rather saying is I'm reasonably confident that I didn't insist on the seeing part. I don't know where you got that from. What I rather was talking about is that in my experience, speaking to you, you come across as a human being. Of course, the closest candidate right now perhaps is AI, but keeping that aside, you come across as a human being. In my experience, that's what I said.
Using your senses, correct? That's how you experience
using my different faculties of perception.
Correct.
Yeah.
None of which can get you to the previous things I mentioned using that. You have to go to outside.
Are you going to answer your own question, or did you want my answer?
Okay, carry on.
Sure. In relation to history, we have a very good way of critically evaluating claims. People have been doing history for a very long time. Very, very long time. History is a fairly well-defined, structured field for a very, very long time. My point very simply is historical claims can be scrutinized in various different ways, but to a reasonable level of confidence. In the case of Jesus Christ dying and coming back alive, it is one of those claims. Today, the evidence, the historical records in relation to Jesus Christ is so strong that even though you can't do this necessarily for every single claim in history, in relation to Jesus Christ, we are able to critically analyze the claims made with the historical context presented. That's my point in relation to Jesus Christ. And it's not the only place, only point in relation to understanding the biblical worldview to be true, but it is a significant part. Understanding the historicity of the person of Jesus Christ, especially in his death, burial, resurrection.
Yeah, I mean, that's not evidence, but sure, you can believe in that
What's
if you
not
want.
evidence?
That
What? I can't believe. Have you? Simply, this is unbelievable. Have you ever followed any court case, a judicial court case of something, some criminal
Yep.
act or something? Are you familiar with Oscar Pistorius case, for example?
Not that particular, but sure, I
Some other
understand the
case.
courtroom. I understand what analogies you might make. Carry on.
Yeah, I mean, court cases deal all the time with, not all the time, perhaps many times with history. What really happened? They're not saying, hey, what really happened, we can't evaluate, we'll bin it. No, what really happened is a subject matter in many court cases, and what really happened.
Evidence.
Come again, please.
Which are fought with evidence.
Absolutely. So history is evidenced. That's my point.
No. You just used a circular argument. You said to know about history in a court, you would bring evidence. You're saying to know about history, there's history. That's a circular argument. That makes no sense. You could say this happened in history.
Are you speaking to yourself or something? What is happening here?
Okay, you go ahead and try it again. Use your court case analogy. Try it again.
But you need to really pay attention, because you're saying stuff in a matter of a few seconds and it's completely weird. Maybe you're not paying attention at all. So please pay attention.
Sure.
Your point before I brought in a court case is that history can't be studied or something to that extent.
No, I said there's no evidence for the history you were trying to claim is true.
Sure. Okay. If that is your point, then I misunderstood. I don't know why I misunderstood. Maybe it is my problem. Maybe it is your problem. But that's fine. So if your claim is, if at least we can agree that there are aspects of history, portions of history, which we can analyze based on evidence. Do we agree at least on that?
Yes.
Sure. So now, okay, that's fine. Now I don't know why I misunderstood you. Maybe it's my mistake. In the case of Jesus Christ, I'm going to say it is one of the arguably best presented historical cases ever. If Jesus' history can't be analyzed and understood, especially in the death, burial, resurrection, nothing else could be. In terms of archaic history, nothing else. We might as well give up for anything before maybe 500 years before now. We might as well give up.
So just to make sure we're on the same page, are you saying simply because it's written about in history, therefore that history was true? Or are you saying not only is it written in history, but I also have X, Y, and Z evidence to believe that what was written is true?
Best attested history, arguably, Jesus' history from antiquity, one of the best attested.
Sure, that is an answer. So are you saying because it's written about, which is called attested is an evidence, and I don't know if you're confusing the two, but attested is
attested
called,
is what?
It's basically it's written about. right?
Okay. Kila, maybe I'll use simpler terms.
Okay.
In relation to Jesus, there is a very good way of understanding that what happened in his life is true, and for us to have a great level of confidence in this, there is a very good way of doing this analysis.
So, were you going to carry on?
Okay, if you actually wanted to get to know the details, tomorrow is the session for that. Christianity understood.
Okay, so I thought you were going to present evidence. That's what I was staying quiet. Okay, no worries. I'll wait for the evidence tomorrow then. No.
Tomorrow, yeah. Are you based in UK time zone, Kila?
Yeah.
Sure. So you're most welcome to join the stream tomorrow, and essentially we deal with scrutinizing Christianity is the subject matter.
No worries. Do you want to scrutinize anything more from me? Anything else you want to know about an atheist, Ray?
I'm going to crack a joke, but it'll be at your expense right now. But
I have no worries. I'm from the Twitter age. We
just
and everything.
Just to say one thing, would you say that there is not good evidence for the existence of many characters that we know in history?
Say again, sorry, without what?
I'll just do this a bit slowly. Do you not think there is strong evidence for the existence of historical characters that we are aware of? Say, for example, Pontius Pilate, Socrates, whatever it may be.
Yeah, of course. I think I answered your what you're asking to what I mentioned to Avul, which is there is history and it's written, but to what extent that history that has been written is true is very different. So, for example, there are many things that just become folklore about some of the characters you mentioned. Sometimes there are inflated versions of the history because people that really like the person's writing.
I get that. Yeah. That's fine, but you're looking at the negative options which exist. I agree, but there are some very positive options that exist which are incredibly substantiated, that provide strong evidence of the existence of certain characters. I appreciate it's not 100%, but it's of a very strong nature that, if presented in court, would represent an extremely strong argument that this person exists. And what Awa is saying, that level of high level of tested evidence does exist in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And all I would say to that, by all means, join the stream tomorrow night to
get into
discuss
the meat
that and take that further.
No, that's totally fine. But did you have any more questions for an atheist?
nothing else, Kila. Okay, so evolution is baseless. Origin of life, atheism has no clue in providing any meaningful.
I tell you what, if I ever see either of you writing or written in any scientific journals where you throw the scientific world, or any of your friends, James Tor, whoever you mentioned earlier, if they do that, then don't worry, I will not be a barrier like I do now. Evidence.
I don't know what the relevance of this point is, but
because there's evidence for evolution, etc. The thing you're trying to say is not true or whatever.
And why should we write in a scientific article for that to be the case?
How else would you be taken serious scientifically?
Are you familiar with the idea that a while ago philosophers and scientists worked hand in hand? Are you familiar with this idea at all or not?
They still do.
They don't. Scientists like
philosophy.
So how
at the moment?
Philosophy is a science.
Yes.
Okay. Is philosophy the science that you had in mind when you said the evidence for Jesus is that scientific?
No, because it's not a philosophical argument, unless you're saying
please answer my question. Was philosophy part of the science that you had in mind when you asked the question, was the evidence for Jesus Christ scientific?
No.
Okay. In other words, in your mind, clearly philosophy is different from science.
No.
In that statement, at least.
No, that's totally wrong.
That's fine. That's
Would you
fine.
like me to explain basic logic? Or
Not really.
okay.
Not really.
I'm
Not
sure
really.
you're not. Yeah, I'm sure.
People play ping pong. You know, on one minute
Logic?
they'd
No,
say,
logic is just something which you can do and try and make reasonable arguments from it. So what you just said can easily be proven untrue, and so that's why logic would be used to point it out.
okay, fine.
Yeah.
Killa, thank you very much.
Hey,
The
no
point
worries.
that, yes, we'll be really interested to yeah, essentially, thank you very much. And please stay tuned in relation to many arguments made, and try and see if anyone progresses beyond talking about viruses and variants of viruses, if they get into any further details in terms of evidence on
Well, that's
evolution.
what you chose, right? You scrutinized me on it, not me.
In terms of evidence for evolution, you didn't give anything else, yeah?
Well, I gave virus. If you don't want to accept that, I mean, I don't know.
That's what I said just a moment ago. You only gave that. You didn't have anything else.
What else did you want? I mean, you want
Speaking
you
only
said
about viruses, if you think you've spoken only
hold on.
about
Sorry. The reason it went to specifically viruses is because you wanted specification within evolution. You asked, where do we see a change currently? Currently was the reason I went into the laboratory where we do it for viruses. Then later on, you asked for what is the first cellular life. I explained to you it's millions of years. So, and then that topic wasn't broadened. So it wasn't that I did. But hey, as I say, I can come on again if you're done today. The next time I'll bring something else, and we'll see if you can get to scrutinizing it better.
All right,
Yeah.
fella.
Yeah, the next time we need to keep a log of what you're saying when.
Perfect.
Because,
You bring the notepad, and I'll let you do it as well. So you
Sure,
can
sure.
control it.
All right,
Because
fine.
from what I remember, you began with the vaccines. You said vaccines won't be scientific. Sorry, we can't do medical science if not for evolution. That's where you began, and then you went into vaccines, and you went into
That's
viruses. I
medical
didn't lead
science.
you anywhere.
Hey,
You
it's
went
medical
there.
science.
But okay. Killa, lovely speaking to you, and we'll catch up later.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye.
Okay,
Hey,
fella.
it was lovely speaking to you. Absolutely lovely
Yeah.
speaking to you. Of course, we disagreed, but it'll be lovely to continue this conversation.
No
Okay.
worries.
We're
Take care.
just going
Bye.
to. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you. No, Ray, maybe not actually, because the Wesley has a history. I requested him to email. Lovely Wesley, if you can please email, we can take a conversation from there, because yeah, that's the suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take your guidance on that now. Thanks.
Yeah. Ray, what do you think? Should we? No time to talk, Allah.
But we're really talking about atheism, so we really this is our forum for those that believe in atheism and how they can defend their worldview. And then if it's more about Christianity, that's tomorrow. If it's more about Judaism, you just say you're Jewish. I'm not quite sure in what sense you mean. Whether so, if it is on the basis of a Judaism position, then that's on Tuesdays. But if it's more on the fact that you do believe in Jesus, no, Jesus is God, that's then down to what we would say, okay, that's a Christian position. And if you want to discuss that, then we do have that on a Friday. We don't have the conversations about Christianity on this particular stream. This is the atheist and agnostic under scrutiny. So that's just one of the things we would like to be made clear. What do you think to that, Wesley?
Yeah, I think we can move on, Brother Ray. I'm sure. Who's that? No one.
Oh, is that J Bond? Is that J? That's like the auto reflex. I don't have any comments in the chat, so Noah, if you want to put some comments in the chat to let us know who you are, if you're an atheist or agnostic.
No, unfortunately, many. Okay, now I think we can hear. Let's get Noah in. Hello, Noah. Hello.
Hello, yes. Hello.
Hey, lovely to see you.
Hello, Arul.
How are you doing?
Hello, hello. So I just joined. Let's talk.
Yeah.
Hey, hello, Arul, my friend.
Yes. By the way, Ray, I do know Noah Menir.
Ah.
Yeah.
Hello,
Lovely to
Ray.
see you. That's Brother Ray.
So I was in the middle of reading your book and also listening to your stream. And yes, I just joined. So what are we gonna talk about?
Today's stream is mainly on atheism and agnosticism. But if your question is if you want to speak about Christianity in specific, tomorrow is the day.
Ah, okay, okay. Yes, so yes, yes, I am still agnostic. Yes, I'm still undecided. Yes, maybe inshallah in 1 month, in some weeks, maybe my mind changes. Huh?
Absolutely. So yeah, essentially, we'd really like to invite you to the Christian stream, and
Yes, okay.
we can go through the historicity of Jesus, or the fact of his claims, and the fact of why the Christian worldview is coherent, comprehensive, and consistent.
I read your table of contents. I saw
Yeah.
many of your book. I saw many evidences. I saw that you, in your introduction, you mentioned that if we read the Bible, there are claims that that speak about Christ and stuff. And then you wrote, but how can we? How did you said it? How did you formulate it? You said we cannot take for granted that these claims are true. And then in your book you try to explain. So this is what I first want to read, and then yes, and then yeah. But
Actually, that's a good point. Actually, even instead of joining tomorrow, or maybe you can watch tomorrow, but I'd really like for you to read through the book, please.
I will.
Yeah, and then I think we could have a very meaningful conversation.
Yes, yes, you're right. Yes.
Yeah. So then at least you'll have a bit of the background knowledge, and
Yes.
so yeah.
I am
So
just a super big. I'm a very big fan of you. I just joined without preparation, and yes, life is improvisation. You know, so you just enjoy the moments and you just do.
Absolutely, no, and I mean, I'm a silly little guy. You know, if you're impressed by what I do, then the Lord Jesus
I
Christ
am.
is the way to go. The Lord Jesus Christ is the way to go. Now, He is thoroughly impressive. He is God, of course. You know, by a million miles. His character is phenomenal. His attributes phenomenal. His historicity is absolutely phenomenal. And so, dear friend Manir, please read the book. And yeah, cool. So maybe Brother Ray, what do you think? Noah is Manir is a friend, so he's going to. We are in an email conversation. We caught up over Zoom also previously, and he has the book.
Yes.
So I think we'll follow up from there.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now.
Cool. Many.
Yes. If I can just so I was hearing evolution that is not true. It's very interesting because I also thought that evolution was true. And I am just 29 years old. How can I look before 29 years? I don't know what happened 30 years. I only read books. I know the World War II, the World War One, Alexander the Great or Charlemagne, Napoleon. The biggest how I say this, the biggest form givers to the current world of today. And that is all that I have of resources. For the rest, I know nothing. I admit that I know nothing, and that's why I always say agnostic. But I'm never gonna say this or that, or I never judge, or no. I never. I try to oppress my vanity. You understand? Judging, speaking for other people. I will never do it. I know that I am a person like anyone else. That I know nothing. I have all in my brain and my perception, and yes, that's all. So yeah, I read your book, and I read your insights.
Absolutely. So if you do that, I think that's a very good, very good reference point for the entire history. If Jesus died, came back alive, period.
Yeah.
You know.
And if it's true, then I become a Christian. My family, they will be super angry. But if Jesus Christ is the absolute truth, then I believe every human being should follow it. And I believe it. Religion is the answer for many things. I also told my sisters and my brother, because my sisters and brother, we are not religious. My parents didn't teach us this way, but my sister said something to me. She said, I want to become a Muslima because I want my children to be in the same environment. How can I say it? So we are 50-50%. We have never identified ourselves with Muslims or with white people, because we are 50% Belgium and 50% from Morocco. And so I can understand she wants it, because we cannot identify ourselves with any race. And yes, it was a bit of a dilemma in our childhood. Yes.
I was just going to make one comment, Noah, based on what you just said there was, it is amazing, and I'm sure you would agree, if not somewhat startling, how people can give the reasons they give for their following or joining or accepting a particular religion. And what I do like the way that you're speaking is that if we, rather than do it on the basis of convenience or basis of family or basis on geographical or cultural links, then of course that's not a very strong or good way to look for truth. It's more about looking for. It's almost like what sports club would you like to join?
It's true, yeah.
Which is really, really dangerous. And we're not talking about something that may have a little bit of benefit in life. It will have value to life, but it's offering far more than that. This is talking about eternal life, evidence that is really, really solid on that there is a God, and that God will offer eternal life for those that believe in him. And that's the reason why we're even making all the effort we're making, because this, for me and for all of us, is far more than just a club. It's all about far greater than. It's about our lives.
It's the absolute truth. It's yes, it's a group that follows the absolute truth, and the absolute truth is the universal truth for any human being, for every time, and that is what every Muslim claims to follow, every Christian claims to follow. And yes, I also want to know the absolute truth.
The simple differences between the Islamic faith and the Christian faith is
many. Yes.
Well, I can put it in one very simple term. Christianity stands up to scrutiny. Islam doesn't. If it's properly, critically evaluated and challenged, Islam breaks down very rapidly. And that's actually a stream that we do. We do that on Mondays. So by
Yes,
means
I watched.
Oh, you do? Okay. So that's where that particular process is really, really valuable, because once you see a faith system is clearly not true, because when you look into the detail, it doesn't hold up to scrutiny, then you know that that's something that you've got to stay away from.
Can I say something?
Sure.
My nephews are Muslims. They tell me things. They tell me the Jews this, the Jews that. They they repeat things that the Muslim scholars tell them to say. They tell them that what is the cultural assumptions. I don't like this, and I always tell them, I don't want you to copy things. I want you to think critically.
Nice.
And what I want to say is, okay, what I want to say now is in Christianity is the essence of Christianity is you believe in the sin, in the initial sin of every human being. And there is a bit of my dilemma, because yes, I think that you need to teach kids how to behave and stuff, but do I need to because Adam and Eve did a sin, do we need to suffer for this also? Is this the idea?
Not exactly this one, Munir, and this is where maybe tomorrow is the best stream for that, but not exactly that. That they because of Adam and Eve's sin, certain things happen, but because of our sins, many other things are happening. You and I are sinners too.
Rahul,
So
when I was young, I always wondered. I had also many influence of Christians, and they always put emphasis on forgive my sins. You need to go to the priest, and you need to tell him your sins, and then he will forgive you. He will tell you, wees gegroet Maria. I don't know how to say it in English. And repentancy or something. You need to do suffering or something. I don't know how to say it in English.
Penance.
But yes. But when I was young, I will not say many details, but when I was young, I did only but suffering. I was not a speaker. I was not someone who fitted in groups. I'm not going to say that I never sinned, because I did sin, but I was always like a victim. I cannot, and my sisters also, because of the bad childhood from my parents. Are we sinners? Are we sinners because me, my brother, and my two sisters had a bad influence from my parents? We were always afraid of our lives when we were young. Why do I need to ask for forgiveness when only other people, I need to forgive other people? Or is this a bad assumption that I say? Do you understand me, or?
I hear what you're saying. I think there might be details we need to get to, and this is where maybe tomorrow is the best stream, Munir. Let's do it tomorrow, or we
Okay.
can do it, or we can actually even do it over Zoom. We can catch up over Zoom and go through some questions you might have, in a private conversation. Why don't we do that? Zoom is even better. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so
You're
that way.
always right, Rahul.
But no, that's not. It's quite happy to hear that, but that's not really true.
It's a little humor, you know.
I know.
I like it.
But you know what?
I just heard you for 2 hours being super critical and super confronting. So there is no way to reason with you. You're always right. So you understand my point.
You should just ask my wife, and then suddenly I'll be wrong all the time. No, I'm joking.
Maybe.
The nice thing, Noah,
Inshallah.
is what Ava will do with you is it's not about him, telling you what's true. It's going through a step-by-step process to convince you on your terms, so that you can understand it, you can appreciate it, you can critically evaluate as well. By all means, throw some stuff back at Harold, that's fine too, because at the end of the day, if it leads you to truth, it's well worth it. And I think you're going to have an amazingly positive journey by the way that you're approaching your search for truth. So I'm very optimistic in this, Noah.
Okay, thanks. Inshallah, I will read the book from Arul first, and then I continue my my further thinking. Yes, okay. Thank you, guys. Now I am in Turkey. It's 1 a.m. So thank you a lot for you. It's I think it's 11 p.m. So thanks a lot. It's late. So thank you for the stream I watched. I always enjoy it. Thank you guys. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Arul. My dear friends, my Christian brothers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our lovely, very, very dear friend, Menir. Lovely to speak to you, and we'll catch up later. We'll set up a Zoom conversation and take it from there.
Okay. Thank you, and good night, guys. Thank you.
Good night. God's blessings.
God blessings.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
I think on that note, it's a lovely way, I think, to close the session. It was great that we had him on, because if anything, that he may not critically examine anything specifically, I think he did a better job than some of the other people on this board, because at least he showed genuine interest to search for the truth. And I think that is so key. You know, you got all these wonderful ideas from various sources, and it's clouding you from just logical, simple, rational sense. Like it's as much as we like the man. Yeah, it's like he's missing the fundamental approach that's really going to make a huge difference in the way he gets to truth. So I like the way Noah did it and the way he did speak. So that was really encouraging.
Absolutely.
And a big thanks, Errol, for your contribution. Really makes such a huge difference to the stream. So thank you for that. Thank you for everybody. Thank you all your contributions, comments, and private chat. Those that did come on stage to confront us and challenge us, we love that, and we always welcome that. And thank you for your participation in that regard. And on that note, now would you like to close in prayer? And
sure.
We'll close the stream for tonight.
Father, we come before your throne of grace, Lord. A quick prayer for Ita, for of course Menir. What was the other gentleman's handle? I can't remember.
There was a guy called
Killa. Killa, Lord, we pray for your blessings for Killa. We pray for your blessings for I Hate Everything. Lord, we pray for your blessings for every other agnostic or atheist who was watching the stream or who might watch the recording later. Pray for your rich blessings for everyone, Lord. Lord, we pray for your blessings for the Christian brothers and sisters on the chat. Lord, I pray for your blessings for Brother Ray. Thank you, Lord. Lord, we commit all things in your hands, ultimately, Lord, for you to convince. Ultimately, when people get to know you personally, then that's it. The issue is solved. The case is closed. But you are God, and therefore there are some prerequisites in terms of how you interact and so on, with who you interact, at what time you interact and so on. It's important for people to humble themselves and come to you, and this is where we reason with people, so to help them understand that it is important for them to humble. So please, Lord, commit all things in your hands. Take care of all the people that come get in touch with us through these streams. Bless them. Take care. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Lovely.
The outro, and bid you have a good night. Have a great evening, and sleep well, Errol.
Thank you much.
And speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Bye bye. God's blessings.
Bye bye.